Good evening. Call the meeting to order of November 21. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll of the council?
Councilman Fogarty. Councilman Lawson.
Yeah.
Council Vice President Rego. Councilwoman Souza.
Here.
Council President Rodrick.
Here, the record show, 4 members present. Councilman Fogarty has called me, and he is on his way. As we know, he's had some illness in the family, so he will be here. Please rise for the pledge. Thank you. There's no executive session tonight, nor are there any proclamations or presentations. Madam Clerk, could you please start reading the agenda?
We have the consent calendar, the tax abatements for 2023, $20,930.24.
There a motion?
Make a motion to accept?
Councilman Lawson moves acceptance, seconded by Councilwoman Souza. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next item.
We have licenses for non-public hearing. We have a road race on May 19th, 2024 at Pierce Stadium. One-day entertainment license for the city of East Providence for the annual Winter Fest on December 9th from 3 to 8 p.m. at the Senior Center. And for Atmosphere Cafe, Sundays and holidays, that's at 65 Valley Street. And they're also applying for a victualling license.
Make a motion to bundle?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Lawson, seconded by Councilwoman Souza to bundle the licenses under the non-public hearings. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. There a motion to approve?
So moved?
Second.
Same order, Councilman Lawson, Councilwoman Souza, all in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. 4-0. Thank you.
For public hearing, we have an application for a Class B full privilege. That's for Chipotle Mexican Grill at 74 Newport Avenue.
Mr. President, Madam Clerk, due to my ownership in a liquor wholesale company, at this time, I need to remove myself from this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. The record show, Councilman Rego has recused himself. So this is a public hearing. Madam Clerk, everything is in order.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is the applicant or representative present? Hi, welcome. Please name and address for the record.
Mr. President, John Garrahy, attorney on behalf of the applicant Chipotle Mexican Grill. As you may know, Chipotle opened a new restaurant approximately about a month ago. Part of their business practices is to have beer and margaritas, very, very small part of their gross sales operation. I've been representing them for about 10 years. They've opened about 10 or 15 stores in Rhode Island. All have been successful. None of them had any issues whatsoever with respect to the alcohol. Ms. Soto is here, who is the certified training officer for Chipotle stores in Rhode Island. I'm happy to answer any questions about the operation.
Thank you. Any specific questions? Ma'am, did you want to add anything to what Mr. Garrahy has said?
I think the address, it says 74, Newport Avenue is 75.
Okay, record show it's 75 Newport Avenue. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone present who'd like to speak in favor or against this application? Once again, is there anyone present who'd like to speak in favor or against this application? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Or what is your pleasure?
I move to approve the license.
Second?
Motion by Councilwoman Souza to approve, seconded by Councilman Lawson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? The ayes have that. Councilman Fogarty, welcome. Did you vote on that?
I did.
Okay, so it's 4 to 0, 1 recusal. Thank you. Good luck. Councilman Rego, you're welcome back. Well, you can come back. I don't know about welcome. Councilman Fogarty, hope you're well. That's good.
Today is Councilman Fogarty's birthday. Happy birthday.
Madam Clerk, next item.
We have public comment, Laura Dodge.
Is Ms. Dodge present? You have to speak at the mic and identify yourself because it's recorded for the record. So if you wanted to speak, you would have to.
You don't have to if you don't want to, ma'am.
Okay, No
you did
problem.
Nothing wrong.
you signed away to give us a loan or something. We'll cancel it. Yeah, no problem. Next person?
Dan Landry, speaking on the Rumford Motor Inn.
Welcome.
Thanks. I've been on a city council sabbatical. I haven't been here in quite some time. As I like to say, when you're away, things don't change much. I'm here talking about a topic that I've talked about a few times here. It's the Rumford Motor Inn. I really don't know what the city's doing with this business, but action needs to be taken. I mean, this has been going on for far too long. Kind of hear the same thing being said about the owner being a nice guy, he's very cooperative. But at the end of the day, he's profiting off of criminal business. There's drugs, guns, weapons being fired from the parking lot into the building, which there's houses that are right behind that building. I don't know how this business continues to operate and the license hasn't been pulled at this point. In addition to that, you can go by that place. It's a mess. He doesn't take any care of trying to clean up that place. There's nip bottles, there's beer cans, there's cigarettes, there's all kinds of food packaging. The two businesses that are next to that, it's Cross Insurance. Right across the street is TD Bank. The people cross the street from Rumford Motor Inn. There's a bus stop right in front of TD Bank. You can go by there every day. There's trash on the ground right in front of the bank, which is unfair to the bank because the bank and the insurance company both have landscapers that maintain and keep their property nice. He does not. So it's great that he's a nice guy. He's not a good businessman. He's taking advantage of the city. And I'm just surprised that the city does not take action. Again, we had a meeting in this room. We were all invited, residents of Rumford, to come here. Representative Kazarian was here that night to hear all the complaints from all the residents. They took down our names, our email addresses, and you know what happened? Absolutely nothing. Continue to operate the same way. I've asked the police chief in the past for the number of calls to that business. It was 222 calls in 1 year. This was back in 2018. I have no idea what it is now. The city should know because that's on record, right? You should take a look and see historical data from the number of police calls to that business year over year. Is it going up? Is it going down? No one seems to know. You could compare it to the extended stay on Warren Avenue. I bet you it's much different. You can go down there anytime and you can see people walking up and down that street like the Walking Dead. They're on drugs, they're on alcohol. And now, as of late, we've had this person who was arrested there, who was breaking into homes in that neighborhood. And they're also leaving stolen cars in the neighborhood. And what upset me when I saw the press conference was the comment from the police chief was a lot of this could have been prevented. And I agree with that comment. But his follow-up to that comment was, if we only locked our doors. So the one time that I forget to lock my car door or my house door, somebody can come on my property and take my stuff? I don't think so. That's on the police department. I don't see the police in my neighborhood. If I call them, I see them in my neighborhood. I never see a police car in my neighborhood.
And appreciate it. We have this as a docketed item tonight, Councilman Rego and myself, and we will be addressing it.
Again.
Appreciate your
I
comments.
keep all my documents from when I'm up here. There's the 2 times previous when I wrote down and came up here and commented. 2018, nothing's been done. That license has not been pulled, and it should. That guy does not care. I don't care how nice of a guy everybody claims he is. I'm a nice guy too. Go buy my property. I maintain and keep up my property. I don't have drugs, guns, alcohol, prostitution, or any of that in my house. The neighbors are tired of it and fed up. And Councilman Rigo, I put it on you.
Well,
Thank you, sir.
I've been forefront in this, and as you know, as you should know, but we'll discuss it further. I'm right with you. You didn't see my political sign on that guy's property. I'll just leave it at that. So don't put it on me.
Thank you, Councilman, and we will discuss this tonight. Next person?
Wentz's.
John Heaney.
Whatever you signed up for, just put your name and address for the record.
John Heaney, 11 Hollow Ridge Road in Rumford.
Welcome, John.
Thank you. As far as the Rumford Lodge goes, the only data point I want to add to that is this past weekend, we've had issues with callers in our neighborhood. Guys coming around and rattling the back doors to see if they can, see what's unlocked. I don't know if that's connected to Rumford, like at all. It's not, no connection there as far as the police have made. But, this seems to be a new phenomenon for my neighbor. We've only lived there for about a year, so I don't have a lot of experience in the neighborhood, but everybody's kind of shocked by the whole thing. So I don't know. It's just a data point. I'm not casting aspersions on the establishment. The police haven't made it. I didn't need to say yet. So that's all I want to say about that. The other thing though is the school zone speed. As far as I'm concerned, I'm all for driving slowly through speed zones, but these speed zones that are on Pawtucket Avenue, and we're talking like Kent Heights High School and St. Margaret's, they're basically just speed traps as far as I'm concerned. And I've talked to many people who've been burned by those specific ones, not the East Browns High School, but I've been burned twice by the Kent Height ones myself. My mother, who's 90, she's no lead foot. She's been burned twice by the one at St. Margaret's School. And back in the day before we had this technology, it was if there were students present, you had to go, at the 20 miles an hour. The technology doesn't discriminate whether or not there are children present. It's just like hours of operation. I don't have a child in school anymore. I don't even know what the hours of operation are anymore. So I just think, I think it's unfair for those, zones that are on busy streets, that are not residential streets, where you have an expectation to, drive a normal speed, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, you come around the corner and you have to hit 20 miles an hour. And there's no students present at all. They're like 60 feet away off of the street behind a chain link fence. And the reaction that it seems to inspire in people is that they avoid driving down those streets, if they live around there. So what's the benefit of driving traffic off of the street that's designed for heavy traffic and pushing it into neighborhoods? So I think there's a couple of things. I'm a technologist myself. There's a couple of things that would improve the situation, I think. Number one, the signs actually had an indication that it was active, that it was in fact operations, school operations in that time frame, and it was actually, active. Like that could be helpful. The other is if the times were not the entire school day, but if it was just when students were being delivered to or picked up from school by school buses, that would also be helpful. Something that would make it a little bit more fair for the driver, that you could actually, do the right thing. you know, whenever I see those speed limit signs that have the numbers and it's like, "You're driving too fast," and then it turns green when you go 25 and it's like, yay. Like, I try to do that, you know, like I'm not talking about, oh my God, I just want to drive really fast. It's just these roads where you've got 2 lanes. It feels like a state highway. And all of a sudden, bam, you have to hit 20 miles an hour and come around a corner. It seems unfair to me.
Thank you, John. Next person, please.
Nancy Hale.
We are 2 days. Can you hear me? Testing. Can you hear me? Are you listening? Good.
Name and address for the record, please.
Nancy Hale, 889 Bullocks Point Avenue. Listening is different than hearing. I want to start. I have 3 things: gratitude, progress, and impatience. I just want to take the time tonight during this week of Thanksgiving to express gratitude for all the council administration, Napoleon, who met with me the other day, and all the departments that are working hard to get our city pointed in a direction where we all want to go. I just want to put about extra thanks to the Department of Public Works Director Dan Borges, who, by my talking with Donna, who is his office manager, I guess, was able to put a piano bar crosswalk at that intersection that I've been talking about since April in less than a week with no email, texting, or telephone tag. So to me, that was awesome progress. Also, I have noticed a really good change in the police officers who have been coming out. They have a little more time and they're listening a little more, which is good. Then I want to talk about before I do that, I want to talk about the Riverside town hall meeting that Rick and the president of the council, that's Rick Lawson, the councilman for Ward 4, and the president of the council came out to the Riverside Library. And this was one of my best experiences yet, to meet with people in your area, with people who can really guide, with the people who have experience. You all have experience and we don't. So we need to combine you listening to us about traffic issues or whatever the issues are with a particular business in any neighborhood, because these issues are going on all over the place. So that was great. And then I have had 2 really valuable pieces of feedback. I'm impatient. I am. And that can be perceived as rude. So I'm sorry about that. But I am impatient because I think we all who live in the city of East Providence want to know that our city is basically safe. And I'm impatient about environmental issues. And I just want to remind everybody that I've been passing out this book a little bit. And I hope those of you who have it will read it and share it. Share it with your friends, share it with other council members. I don't have a budget for this, so I need you to share or get it yourself. It's online. It's not that expensive. I had a hard copy, but I shared my hard copy. And the book in paperback is only $17. So it makes a great gift for the holidays. And if you buy it and begin to read it, you might not want to give it away until you're done with it. That's all, because I know we have a lot to do tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next.
Bert DeQuinzio speaking on the Christine Apartments.
Quincio, present. I would make the point that later on we have public hearing on the zone change, so you can speak then. People are invited to speak then. you know, or now, you probably should do both, but it's up to you.
Well, I was just going to say, we haven't heard anything.
And name and address, please, for the record.
Dirk DeQuinzio, 94 Hospital Road, Riverside, Rhode Island.
Thank you, Gert.
You're welcome. You're correct, because there's nothing to question or complain about.
You might want to hear the presentation,
Yeah, so I'd be better off waiting.
and you're welcome to come back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? That's it, okay. Thank you all who came forward. Next item, please.
Under appointments, appointment of Richard A. Ferrera to the City Council Veteran Advisory Committee, sponsor Council President Rigo.
Council Vice President.
President.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, Mr. President. It's with great honor that I have this appointment tonight of Captain Richard Ferrera, who's probably one of the greatest East Providence police officers ever to adore the uniform. He is a decorated military hero, as well as being a decorated East Providence police officer. At the time when Captain Ferrera was on, there was no rank of major, and it went captain in chief. And if there was a major, he would have been major. And he's just an outstanding human being, and he'll be a great asset to the Veterans Affairs Committee that my fellow council people serve on, Mr. Councilman Fogarty and Councilman Lawson. So I move passage of Richard A. Ferrera.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Rigo, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve Lynn Ferrera to the Veterans Commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Captain, we'll get information to the captain. Next item.
Council meeting decorum, discuss Council Vice President Rigo, Councilman Lawson, and Councilman Fogarty.
Mr. President, at this time, I defer to you to start this conversation.
Okay. The council members and others have asked me and have asked each other to address a general issue of council procedures and decorum. And, you know, you certainly can all speak for yourselves. I think that one topic that council's been concerned about is sometimes if members of the administration are not happy with us, that maybe the way they come forward and speak and the timing of it may throw some of the council off. Vice versa, I've said to my fellow colleagues, we also need to be aware that we have to show the same respect and kind. So rather than make this a big deal, I think, you know, I want to say this, that a city council and a mayor form of government is certainly different than what the city has ever known. I see former council Mayor Bryden in the audience, and he can certainly attest to how things were right up until just a few years ago when the city of East Providence changed its form of government. So my position is that there's a section on the docket that's for the mayor's report or someone in administration to address us, and I support that. I'm not going to sit here as a council president and not want to hear from the mayor of my city or an administration. We also want the mayor to at times relax a bit more, and some of his staff, you know, we'll work together on these things and not to be confrontational with us. So we're all big kids. I think we can work this out. I'll continue to meet with the administration one-on-one if I see some difficulties. And unless you want to add anything very specific, I think point's been kind of made. Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. President. The only thing that I would add is that when one of us ask that an item be tabled or it's the end of discussion, that nobody in the audience tries to continue the conversation. When it's tabled, it's tabled. And when one of us makes a motion to move and to vote on it, it's vote on it. It's our council meeting. I want the input, but you must respect when it's tabled by the end of the conversation. That's all I have to say about that.
I hear you. Anyone else have anything in particular?
Through the chair,
Councilman Fogarty,
I
please.
would just like to, ditto that. I would just expect the respect that we give and the items that Mr. Rego explained, that Mr. Ball clear on what I feel and how I feel. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Lawson.
I gotta apologize for my, I had a constituent point out, sometimes my language is not appropriate. So I do apologize. There's probably been a couple times where my language was not up to what it should be. So I apologize for that, and I will work hard to do better.
I understand. I mean, sometimes issues get emotional, and we all can get passionate about East Providence, and we'll all work on this. Thank you. Next item, please.
Review of Rumford Motor Inn 400 Newport Avenue Hotel License. Discuss possible actions. Discuss and vote. Sponsor Council President Rodericks and Council Vice President Rego.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So I've been meeting with Councilman Rego on this, as this business is in his district, but it's also in the interest to all of us on the council. And I've scheduled this for this discussion tonight. We've asked the police chief to give us the latest information. And this is something that we're going to meet head on. As Mr. Landry spoke earlier, I don't think any of us disagree with what he has to say. My only comment is this business has been here a long time. I think maybe over 30 years. Since I've been on the council, nothing formal has come before me to vote on anything. But we all know it's a problem. And there was a meeting. I don't know if before any of us want to speak on this, or Councilman, before you do, Chief, if you want to clarify what we all saw in the press about a meeting and an ultimatum was given to Rumford Motor Inn. I would say at the very least, from speaking from my point of view, that 3-week window that we were informed about, I would hold strictly to that. If the issue doesn't meet with our approval and approval of the neighborhood, then I'm ready to schedule a show cause hearing to revoke the license. But let's move legally and professionally, and let's hear from you, Chief.
Absolutely. Thank you, Council President, council members. I was present at that meeting, and what I can relay is that the mayor was very, very stern, very direct about that business ceasing to be a motor inn. And one way or another, it becoming some other use for that area. So that is currently being discussed. There is another meeting. I don't know if it's been scheduled, but I know that there has been back and forth about setting a date for that meeting. So it is absolutely in the works. Before I get started, I'd just like to say to Mr. Landry, in no means did I mean to imply that it was the residents' fault that their vehicles were broken into and houses were broken into and items were stolen. As an aside, it's an issue we deal with a lot, with people failing to lock their cars. It's a drum we beat constantly. But my intention, it was about a 35-minute press conference, and that was about 10 seconds of it. So that was not my intention. It was more to beat the drum to everyone to please lock your car doors. We could prevent some of this. And on the same note, we did a very thorough investigation seized quite a bit of property that was stolen, and held at least one person, most likely others accountable. More to come. So,
Chief, could I ask you, at what point, what caused you to have the investigation? Was something brought to your attention? Was there a complaint?
yes.
How did this start?
Yes, there was, in the early, we started receiving phone calls, the next morning, late morning, when people started waking up. And we were alerted to some breaks to vehicles, 2 breaks to garages, a suspicious unoccupied vehicle in the area that was later determined to be stolen. Officers responded. We had a detective respond, and they immediately started the investigation. They were able to follow the evidence back to the motor inn, piecing together some home ring camera video, some other sources. We utilized the video at the Rumford Motor Inn also, and we were able to pinpoint the room the suspect was staying in. So from there, we made contact with the suspect. It was immediately very evident that they had stolen items in the room. We secured the room, obtained a search warrant from a judge, and then we went into the room and, continued the investigation.
Thank you.
So, I would like to say this Rumford Motor Inn has been, a problem for many, many years. What we did today, what Captain Raposa will be showing here in the PowerPoint, is what we as a police department, what the neighborhood deals with also, what we see on a very, very, very regular basis at that establishment, the types of crimes that are occurring there, the types of calls for service we receive there, how that affects the neighborhood, the ripple effects it has on the neighborhood. One thing, we're going to show you some numbers, but it's very difficult to quantify the true effect it has on the neighborhood. We could go to a call at, a residence, a business, McDonald's, Cumberland Farms, one of the other businesses, and it may be someone staying at the motel that's causing the issue, but it's difficult to kind of quantify that in statistics. So we did our best. With that being said, I'm going to have Captain Raposa come up.
As
Chief,
captain's coming forward, Councilman Rego, do you want to make a comment?
Chief, thank you for that great presentation. As you know, the first time after I got, excuse me, after I got elected council person, we sat down and one of my biggest concerns was the hotel. And you stated at the time, it's probably one of your top, it's probably the top place in the city or one of the top places where the men and women of East Providence Police Department respond to.
Without a doubt.
And you told me the terrible stories that you people have to go through there, Lysol and disinfecting yourselves and everything afterwards. So it's a situation I've been on to since day one. Thank you. And thank you and for the men and women who did a great job in that investigation. It started early last Sunday morning.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilman. Captain, if you want to proceed. Thank you, Chief.
Absolutely. So on Friday last week, I was asked to get some quick statistics together for tonight's meeting. So it's only about 5 slides, but it's going to be pretty self-explanatory on the numbers. So you guys want to take a look at the first slide?
Do the slides match this?
Yes.
All right, so I don't have to come.
There we go. All right, so this is just the calls for service reasons that our CAD system, our computer aided dispatch, keeps track of. These are the most common calls for service reasons. We'll just go down these really quick. Assault, assist fire rescue. Assisting fire rescue is normally something to do with possibly an overdose of some type of narcotic, or it could just be to assist the fire and rescue because of other reasons, whether or not be firefighter safety, paramedic safety, and officer safety. Check the well-being. We do quite a bit of that with people who are under the influence of drugs and/or alcohol. Disturbances can consist of domestic, verbal, physical disturbances in the parking lot. Lots of follow-up investigations, like the chief mentioned, a call for service for a person who is intoxicated at the Cumberland Farms, who may be staying there. We may have to go back to that location to try to track that person down, to issue trespass notices, to do a further investigation. Just not only in criminal investigations as well. Like I said before, intoxicated persons, loud noise complaints, motor vehicle stops. A lot of the motor vehicle stops occur in that parking lot or in that area of 400 Newport Avenue. Psychological problems, suicidal people with the homeless people that are living there, the transient population. There's quite a bit of psychological issues with those folks, and so we respond there quite a bit for those reasons. Sex offenses, it's one of those things that's kind of there's all sorts of sex offenses. There's sexual assaults, forcible rape. There's also you have a lot of sex offenders living there temporarily, so they do have to register with our agency. Lots of suspicious persons and/or vehicles, and of course, warrant services. Once we know who continues to stay there, we are able to track them down and execute arrests and search warrants there. If you want to switch to the next slide, these are just some of the major or most common things that we've been dealing with just in 2023. And these cases do go back many, many years. You can just change the names, change the dates, and they're very, very similar. Earlier this year, 2023, 2 strong-arm robbery suspects staying at the Rumford Motor Inn violently robbed a local business owner making a cash deposit at a Newport Avenue bank. That was another investigation that our patrol division headed up, and the detectives involved were able to track those folks down. They were staying at the Rumford Motor Inn. After verbal disturbance in a neighboring community, a suspect drove to the Rumford Motor Inn and fired several rounds into the building. Mr. Landry, that's the case that you were speaking about earlier. But he just came to the parking lot. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning. I was working that morning, and decided to fire rounds at the room he believed the person he had an issue with was staying. You can read through these. Another one of the big numbers here is 48 separate investigations by the Special Investigations Unit, who also is our narcotics unit. They investigate narcotics, sex crimes, prostitution, things like that. That's 48 separate instances this year that they've investigated cases. There's numerous documented violent gang members that frequent the location. An overwhelming majority of these gang members do have previous narcotics, trafficking, and firearms charges. So we're not dealing with just normal people on a vacation trying to rent a room to visit the area. You go to the next slide. The issues with people leaving the Rumford Motor Inn and going into the neighboring businesses, the neighborhood and local businesses, they meet up with their drug dealers. Okay, so when they're meeting up with these drug dealers, sometimes these drug dealers are there to actually commit crimes against these people to try to steal their money, or vice versa. So there's a lot of this kind of leaking into the local neighborhoods, and our investigators, undercover investigators, marked police patrol units are constantly pulling these vehicles over, searching these vehicles, making several arrests. We've had narcotic dealers from obviously the Providence area, Pawtucket, Attleboro, coming from as far as Fall River, Boston, and New York, visiting that location. The biggest concern that we've seen, and it's one of the things that we don't really see here in the Northeast, but it's that increase in crystal methamphetamine users. Crystal methamphetamine users are quite different compared to the opiate addicts that we're kind of used to around here. Crystal methamphetamine addicts are very violent when they are seeking their high. Their thought process is much different than an opiate user. You can take a look at that. I referenced the most recent calls for service, call for service with 200 items, including a firearm just about a week and a half ago, being seized from there. So here I have a small chart for the calls for services, and I put a little asterisk there that the chief actually already touched upon. It says it does not include all the calls associated with the Rumford Motor Inn or 400 Newport Avenue. So calls that could happen on Elmwood or Farrell Place or Pawtucket Avenue, those calls may have a nexus to the Rumford Motor Inn, but there's very limited ways that we can document that and retrieve that information. We're trying to get more, a better documenting program to hopefully pinpoint more of these instances. But you can see, I started with 2020 for obvious reasons. I put the COVID-19 there because there was a lot more people that weren't staying in hotels. Hotels were closed down. They had maximum capacity limits in place. There was 187 calls for service in 2020, with 8 arrests coming from that location for the entire year. You can see how when the restrictions were lifted for 2021, we had 330 calls for service at that one location. That's nearly 1 call a day with 30 arrests. 2022 showed a slight decline to 241 calls for service with 20 arrests. This year, up until the 15th of November, was just under 200 calls for service with 20 arrests. And the startling number, I think you can see here, for a 10-year period, we've responded to that location. Again, these are conservative numbers, not including people that we've encountered outside in the neighborhoods and local businesses. But for that 10-year period, we had nearly 2,200 calls for service with 223 arrests. Again, these are conservative numbers. If you want to switch over to the next slide, I think that's the last one there. There is a strain on department resources. Obviously, during the day shift and the 4 to 12 shift, we do have 9 post officers working. That area in Rumford, we normally have, I would say, 2.5, because one officer kind of takes up some of the Taunton Avenue area. So we have those officers in post 8 and post 5 taking up that area of Newport Avenue, the business district up there, and the surrounding neighborhoods. Those calls for service at that location require a 2-car response minimum, not only because of officer safety reasons, but just because of the sheer number of calls we've had there with violent individuals, calls with issues with, you don't know who you're walking into there. It's not like going into a home or an apartment that you respond to all the time. You don't know what you're going to be walking into there. Those instances there take away from other calls for service in the Rumford area. So now the next call comes in, and we need officers to respond to another Rumford address. They're coming from down anywhere between Taunton Avenue, Warren Avenue, and possibly even more south than that. So obviously, response time is going to be a big issue there. The vagrant and transient individuals associated with the Rumford Motor Inn walking the surrounding neighborhoods and loitering in local businesses. That's one of those things that we see all the time. And I think anybody who drives up and down Newport Avenue, our major, saw a couple last night up at the Cumberland Farms, which has kind of attracted a lot of these residents or these people staying at the Rumford Motor Inn. Everybody sees them. You know that they're staying there. I don't want to generalize, but you can see them acting almost having some type of intoxicating movements about them, especially the folks that are using crystal methamphetamine, and they're very, very obvious. So you see those people walking up and down Newport Avenue, Pawtucket Avenue, and the surrounding neighborhoods. The extremely dangerous individuals frequenting that parking lot, not necessarily staying at the hotel, but delivering narcotics there. They are career criminals. They have extensive criminal histories, include violent crimes, possession of felonious drugs, and firearms charges. So we're not dealing with the kid selling nickel bags of marijuana. And also, the Rumford Motor Inn is a well-known location for these people that are looking for an inexpensive location to use narcotics or take place in or partake in criminal activity. It's known, it's very well known throughout that community that you can go there, you can get cheap place to stay for the night, and quick access to narcotics and delivery, literally door-to-door service.
Captain, since 2013, thousands of calls for service, over 300 arrests, known gang members. This is not a good thing. This is not a good neighbor for any of East Providence. I went there today. I drove around the area, that large grassy area way in the back, trash strewn. I didn't see a lot of cars in the parking lot. So I assume these are people that get dropped off, get rides, walk.
That's correct. They'll usually take public transportation, Ubers, taxis. They normally do not have their own personal transportation.
Before we ask council to comment, I want to ask, is the owner or a representative of this business here tonight? I'm just curious if there's any attempt to appear here tonight. Seeing none, no representative, no owner. Right, no, I don't think we
Not a
asked
show
them. I
cause
was just-
hearing.
It's not a show cause, right? Yeah.
Correct.
just
Mr.
wondering.
Solicitor,
Councilman.
everything we've heard, do we have enough cause to shut this down?
We have enough evidence to go forward with the show cause hearing.
I'd like
Um,
to schedule that for our next meeting. This is
So,
getting ridiculous.
I'm okay with that. We might need to give more than 2 weeks' notice. We have to write up the charges. They have to get written charges. So
So if we have to, 3 weeks, so wait, we meet on December 4th, so December 11th, do we be ready for a show cause hearing?
I'd have to meet with the police, get all the documents that we have and the charges and you know, we have to give them notice of what the charges are. They have a right to defend those charges. I know that they've been contacted with a lawyer. They knew that this was coming, so they anticipate this coming.
So
It should be, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I will entertain a motion from someone and a second that we instruct the city solicitor to work with the police chief to, as soon as possible,
Yes. Or
schedule
something bad happens.
the show cause hearing. I understand there's due process. The laws. If we do this incorrectly, we can lose and the business stays for another 30 years. So we want to do it the right way and we want to give them a chance to answer. I think we all know we don't want this business here, but let's do it the right way and make it permanent. So is there a motion?
Can I just add something? And it would be helpful. I know there was at least one resident in the neighborhood. It might, in addition to the facts that we have here, it also would be very important to get some neighborhood to testify at this hearing as to how it's affecting the neighborhood. So if you could give me your name and address or way to contact you, I don't know if you have other neighbors who will willing to testify.
I have a,
Sure, and
You must have an
invite-
email.
I have a telephone directory full of comments that we'll see if they'll come forward, like Mr. Landry has tonight.
So,
So, but
Councilwoman Souza.
First,
Can I ask another question? I'm sorry.
okay. Well, as far as December 11th, is that possible from your end? I know the captain did an outstanding job with breaking it down. So it's already starting the process. And I would also reach out to the fire department because they are there on numerous occasions as well.
We also have to give them fair notice and we have to make sure that they have the ability to appear. I don't know if they're available December 11th.
All right.
So as soon as
Yeah,
possible.
as
that's what I
possible.
mean.
Can I just ask a question though? My
I
question.
don't want,
Yes.
I thank you. I just don't want this to be kicked down the.
No,
street or anything. Not on your part, but,
No.
you know,
I understand the urgency of it.
because I'm close by too, is Dan walks his dog in front of my house every day and I'm out there every day picking up,
Does Dan
Yes,
have a
as well.
bag with him?
I didn't pay attention to that, but
Or Councilwoman, or did you want to
I
add?
just want to, so do you want to schedule it at a regular meeting of the council or a special meeting?
How about you let us know when it'd be an
Okay.
appropriate time? and then we'll take it
Councilwoman
from
Souza.
Thank you, Vice Council President. This is for the city solicitor. Are we able to put a hold or suspend their license temporarily? Okay, so we have to wait through the process. Okay. So thank you, Captain, for this, this information. And I know the residents have been dealing with this for a long time, and it is unfortunate this has come before the council. And I know previous representative in Ward 1, did have some advocacy, and we did go like 6 months. There was limited uh, perimeters on their licensing previously. My concern, and I know we're moving forward, and I think that's great, but I just want to make a point that it's disturbing that it's only because of a very specific incident that happened recently that this has now taken us to this point where with all this data, it would have been nicer, and I hope moving forward that the police department, if there are businesses that are having issues in this way or other disturbances in our community, that the council would be aware. Because when we're up here renewing these licenses, the thing we always repeat is everything okay with these businesses? Are they in good standing with the police? Are the police and the fire okay? And we always get the same, yep, everything's great, but clearly it's not, right? And that would have been the perfect instance to have pulled this license before we approved it this year and made some changes or brought them before us, right? And not have renewed it. And I'm not blaming any particular person, but this is just hindsight. So moving forward, I would ask that if there are incidences in the community with businesses or any licensing that this council approves, that we would be made notified of repetitive offenses or calls to service that are unusual, repetitive, if patterns start to develop, because we want to do our due diligence and not just be giving away licenses or offering licenses to businesses that are not good businesses and don't serve the public the way they should be serving. So that's just, I just want to make that comment. And again, I thank you for the disturbing report that was presented to the council and the public, and wish that we had known this sooner rather than later. But thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
And again, to the chief and to your whole department, I just want to say thank you. I've noticed firsthand obviously the increase in patrol cars, but also the increase in undercover cars. I was at a business on Newport Avenue doing my business as far as, for my company. And at 11 o'clock in the afternoon, a patrol car pulls up, and then all of a sudden a couple undercover cars who then I've noticed have been in our neighborhood. So I thank you for the support that you're giving the community.
We spend quite a bit of time up there.
And the undercover cars, not just, just not the black and gray cars. There's a lot of undercover cars that are in and out of the neighborhoods. I've
Guess
noticed
we have to
that.
switch those cars up now.
All right, well, I'm not, I didn't tell you what the cars looked like, so, but thank you.
Mr. Solicitor, if God forbid there's a violent incident between now and when we move forward, do we, as the licensing board, we can't even in emergency? So what would be considered an emergency? Like there's a,
Shooting at a building is not an emergency to the public.
that's my point. Between now and when we can form, or if there is a violent or some kind of act, do we have the ability to shut it down right away?
So someone would have gotten to be shot physically for it to happen.
There's always a tipping point, but yes, if it's something was murder, there's a murder there, absolutely, absolutely.
What about an
A big-
assault?
Big drug bust.
Two
Okay.
strong arm robbery suspects.
Yeah, okay.
Violent robbery at a local business. That sounds.
So we're with you, chief, that this got to go.
Just
We just got to do it the right way. So we're with you.
The most important thing is that they're a license holder.
Yep.
They're a property owner. They entitled to due process.
Yep. So just guide us,
We
buddy.
got it.
We'll get there.
We're guiding you for it. And we did meet with the owner and a representative of the owner this week or last week, I can't remember. This week. And I can assure you that, and the mayor was there and we had all the department heads there. And the message from the administration was the use of this, the continued use of this building as a short-term rental hotel is going to end one way or the other.
The licensing board is very clearly
They
saying.
made it
it's
very
over.
clear that not only from the licensing board, but from other options. So, and they're supposed to get back to us within the next 3 weeks. And I will tell you that I know for a fact that there were some scheduling issues with either redevelopment plans or other plans to redevelop it into something that is not a nuisance to the neighborhood, to the city.
That brings us to my initial point of we do this right and make it permanent. We all know of businesses, I can think of a couple right now that things were not handled well going back years ago, and that business is here forever. So I think we're doing the right thing. That was a motion from Councilman Lawson, a second by Council Vice President Rego that repeat the motion, I believe. You got it? Okay. Madam Clerk, would you call a roll of the council?
Councilman Fogarty? Councilman Lawson?
The motion as soon as possible to set up the hearing. No, he didn't need to have
Okay,
it
I apologize.
repeated. He didn't want it repeated, you know.
You were listening, but not hearing.
All right, so the motion is to ask the city solicitor and the legal office to begin the proceeding of pulling the license of the Rumford Motor Inn.
Schedule the show of cause hearing
To begin the
as
process.
soon as possible.
Okay, yeah,
That's an aye vote.
yes.
Vice President Rego?
Aye.
Councilwoman Sousa?
Aye.
Council President Rodrick?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Chief and Captain, thank you very much. Please keep us informed. If you need to get in touch with me, I'll reach out to all the council if anything erupts between now and the show cause hearing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Captain. Good report. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving, you gentlemen.
Thank you, council members, for that. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Report of totals of what each city department had remaining in their account end of year FY23 and was turned over to the general fund. Receive report, Vice President Rego and Councilman Lawson.
Councilman Rego, Vice President, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, we received the report, and I see Malcolm has come into the chamber. I would like to have Malcolm come forward and go over what was left in the 23 budget that is now going into the capital budget by department.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Director.
Thank you, Council President, council members. So you were asking, how much do you think is going to go, what kind of surplus we're going to have for this last year? And then how much would go into capital?
We received a report that showed by department what was expensed by at the end of the fiscal year. For instance, I think we saw the fire department was $800,000 under budget, or came in under budget, so there would be an $800,000 surplus.
Well, those numbers were what was expended as of 10/31. However, there are other entries that need to be made. When you finalize your year end, you've got to make sure you do all your bank reconciliations, any outstanding items. You have to do certain accruals for longevity, for the next payroll. There are a lot of items that have not been reconciled yet. So those are very rough numbers. I got this request when we opened it up on Monday. I haven't had time to look at it. We've been in contact with the Auditor General on a regular basis. I've been telling him our audit's not going to start normally the audit should start getting the information done in December, and I'm telling him we're probably 2-3 months behind that due to the vacancies in the office. So I know you'd like a number sooner than later. It's just until we get these positions filled and we can get caught up, you've got rough numbers.
So in the business world, well, first of all, thank you. In the business world, when I have to close my business fiscal year, so you went along that path. If I close it on December 31st, my accounting company waits until everything is reconciled to get the bank records and everything. And obviously my business isn't as complicated as running a city. We have all those bank statements pretty much by the end of the next month. And working on a fiscal year, you start working there. So you telling me that we cannot get, just again, I'm just asking a question here in a thoughtful manner. We're a month removed almost from the last fiscal year. realistically, at our first meeting and I was just gonna say first meeting in December, but see, you said you're shorthanded and everything, so from a realistic standpoint, our first meeting in January, you're not gonna be able to tell us by department either they're overspent or underspent and where the money is. I mean, 60 days. I mean, I think that's fair, and I think we owe it to the people of the city of East Providence because now we're working on a new fiscal year. So when you signed the check on October 31st, and then that's for fiscal year 23. When you wrote a check, this city writes a check for November 1st, moving forward, 2023. That's for fiscal year 24. So I'm not asking for a full audit. I'm just asking for a fair accounting, and that's basic accounting principle. So I ask, and I hope my fellow council people agree with me, that the first meeting in January, we need to have not the documented audit, but we should know by department what was spent and what wasn't spent. Thank you for listening to me.
Councilwoman?
Just to follow up on that, I just would like the city clerk to make note to put this back on the docket for the first meeting of the year.
You have a rough idea of what the surplus may be?
No, you've got the expenses in front of you, but we still have to do revenue. And just to give you an idea, the person that does the bank recs, that position's been vacant for 5 months. The person that was doing it before was only there for 9 months, and she was just learning, and she was behind when she left. So you're 8-9 months behind the bank recs. And we've got somebody starting to do, for the last 2 months, we haven't had a purchasing person. So my controller's now been doing purchasing for the last 2 months, so he's 2 months behind. The purchasing person will start on Monday. Hopefully, we'll get somebody in accounts payable by the end of the calendar year. So we won't be fully staffed till probably the beginning of June. So I can give you.
Can I
a
just,
estimate. Yeah, absolutely.
then I'll go right back to you. So is it there are 3 positions that are unfilled?
There are 2.
2. And what are those titles?
Yes, well, how's this? The procurement position is somebody's taken it, but it's the accounts payable person. So she's got to do accounts payable until we can get somebody in to replace her.
Right.
So, and that position won't be filled until probably January. into
Okay,
December.
so we're actively, these jobs have been advertised. Have any applications come in that you know of?
We're doing interviews next week for the
Okay.
accounts payable, and the purchasing person starts on Monday.
These openings were due to retirements? Although they left,
No, they took other employment.
okay, so it's not a case of we could bring back retirees temporarily to help, okay. Councilman Rigo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Malcolm, again, thank you. You mentioned one position's been vacant for 5 months. Which job was that?
That was the junior accountant, budget analyst. Their job is to do the budget and to do the bank recs.
Oh,
And so that's technically been filled. The accounts payable person got bumped up. She can't move over there till we have somebody to cut the checks, and it's more important for us to actually make the payment to the vendors than it is to do the bank rec.
So how are you guys able to do revenue projections and stuff? We just did the budget
Just did a
process.
budget. Yeah.
How are we supposed to know that these numbers are, that's where we're struggling. That's where we're struggling here.
I mean, so when that first job got opened in 5 months ago, how long did it take you to take the accounts payable person and promote that person to that position?
I'd have to look specifically. That's mainly through HR. I'm sure I could look it up if I had.
So, as my fellow council person just said, I'm really struggling because this is, and I thank you.
Thank you. So we're looking to January maybe to get this back. Anybody else? Okay. Next item, Madam Clerk. Thank you.
Council requests
Thank you,
updated
Mal.
report from October 3rd, 2023. Detailed ARPA allocation spending and existing purchase orders from inception to date, broken down by program and line item to include dates of ARPA expenditures. Received report and discussion. Council Vice President Rego.
Council Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Malcolm, again, thank you. I don't know if this is a request that you just got opened up on Monday. If that's the case, I will move that. We'll move this to the next council meeting, which would be December 4th. I make a motion to table this particular item to give you more time to be ready for it on December 4th.
We're just looking at like a detailed accounting of the ARPA funds, what's been spent, the open POs.
I'd like to see the date, the project it was for, the vendor, and the amount of money that was spent. So 4 or 5 lines, they're very, a basic accounting program with the date, the vendor, exactly what it was for, and the amount per invoice. And an invoice number would also be sufficed as well, sir.
All right, I'll see what I should be able to get you most of it. That's on the invoice number. I don't know if it-
Well, if you don't have to invoice that, I just threw that in the end. So I understand dealing invoice numbers can be a little bit of a pain, but definitely the date, the vendor, the project, and the dollar amount. I wanted the dates on it. Yeah, we had one a while ago, so I just need, with the
Update that.
update. I want, update.
Maybe update that
Update.
last report,
Yeah.
I guess, with the dates that he's asking for.
Thank you, sir.
So that was a motion by Councilman Rego to table this toward the next meeting. And what's that date?
December 4th.
Number 4.
Sorry, 5th? Yeah, December 5th. I'm sorry. That's right. Yep. You're right, Madam Clerk. I apologize.
Next meeting in any event. Mr. Director, do you have a good handle on what Councilman's asking?
I believe so. I should be able to get you that.
Okay, well, give him a call
Any
if you,
questions?
he'll,
I'm an open book.
you guys can
Thank
discuss
you.
it. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Fogarty, is second to the December meeting, first meeting in December. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Guys,
Malcolm, thank you and happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to the council.
thank you, sir. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Council requests copy of request for proposals of the school zone camera and bids that resulted in awarding Census Gatso the contract. Discuss. Council Vice President Rego.
Mr. President, at this time, I table this motion.
Well, this will be tabled. Do we need to? No, we're all set. We will table this at this point, to the next meeting also. Thank you. Next item, please.
Discussion on city council hiring firm to do a full audit of the city's finances. Discuss and vote. Sponsor Councilman Lawson and Councilman Fogarty.
Make a motion that I'd like to table this indefinitely.
This will also be tabled indefinitely at this point in time. Thank you. Next item.
Discussion on amending the times and location of speed cameras. Discuss. Sponsor Councilman Lawson and Councilman Fogarty.
I'd like to table this till we know what the surplus is.
Thank you. This is tied into funding and other items, so this will also be tabled. Thank you. Next item.
Update on Police Department roof. Discuss. Councilwoman Sousa.
Councilwoman.
Thank you. If the chief could just give us, we talked about where the roof project was left off, and it's been a few weeks. The weather has not been raining. So looking to see if that has been completed as of today.
It has not. The latest we were told is that the company underestimated the amount of rubber membrane tiles that were needed for our roof. And they have ordered those, but they don't know when they're going to come in. It is a bit frustrating. Not quite sure how you can not measure a roof correctly.
Chief, with the dimensions not in the RFP, like wasn't that all that information provided or part of the bidding?
The companies were allowed to come in and go up on the roof.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, and
So
they,
it is part of the
a
procurement.
pre-inspection prior to bidding on the project. So,
So Mike, based on the contract, what do we do? Where do we stand?
Nothing physically wrong with the roof. These are not tiles that secure the roof. These are the tiles that allow the people to walk on the roof to make repairs. So it's really just it really is the roof is secure. The building is not leaking.
it's not leaking, but the rubber membranes also protect the roof from any falling ice, which was a huge issue for us. We had a lot of the damage to our roof was done from falling icicles from the radio tower. This rubber membrane was added to eliminate that from happening in the future. So
To the extent there's damages caused, by this delay, then we obviously would seek a adjustment. But right now, there's no damage. And
Right. So my concern, obviously, and I'm sure the chiefs and his staff, is that we're in the winter months and we're in freezing to close to below freezing temperatures. We're getting rain and snow, and I expect that this winter is not going to be a stellar one in terms of last year's. So we know that once the weather starts to get more incremental, they're not going to be able to do the work, right? Just like they couldn't when it was hot out, because they're not going to shovel the roof to then put the materials that they need on the roof. So just concerned that, with the weather, that we are going to experience some issues.
just to add to that, they weren't able to give us an estimated date of arrival. And it was 1,800 square feet that they miscalculated. So quite a bit.
Significant. Very significant.
Chief or solicitor, we haven't paid for this whole project yet, right? We're holding back still, or how does that work?
Yes, I don't know at this point, what we still owe them, but we were paying on a weekly basis. But that has ceased. I don't know what the outstanding balance is off the top of my head.
we could get you that. I know we looked at
Okay.
it.
As long as we know there is a balance and we're holding payment until this gets
I know
done.
the director of public works has been working with them as well. So he hasn't expressed any concerns as far as the integrity of the roof at this point. But something that obviously if there's damage caused by ice or something, then we'll address it. But right now, thankfully, it hasn't.
Yeah, find out how much is left so we'll know if it's significant enough.
I think it was, but I'll check.
Okay.
All right, thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank
Have
you,
a
Chief.
nice Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thanks, Chief
Everybody.
and Captain, and thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Announce Freedom Green tree lighting December 9th, 2023 from 4 to 6. Vice President Rego.
Well, this is nice. We got something really nice to talk about at this point. It's the annual Freedom Green Christmas tree lighting. We moved it from the 8th to the 9th so it does not conflict with the Riverside Square Christmas tree lighting. Ask everybody in the city to come on up to Freedom Green. There's going to be some nice vendors, great music. Santa Claus will be there, and it's just a fun time. And just 4 to 6.
Thank you, Councilman. We have the most per capita visits from Santa than any city in Rhode Island. Next item.
An ordinance and amendment of the city's comprehensive plan dated 2010 to 2015. Land use map from low density residential to commercial mixed use for the subject property Christine Apartments. And that's at 1279 Wampanoag Trail.
Thank you. Is the applicant present or representatives? Welcome. Just name and address for the record.
Thank you, Council President, members of the council. My name is Attorney Stephen Antonucci, 450 Veterans Memorial Parkway, East Providence, Rhode Island. I represent the John Flatley Company, who is the applicant and requested the three ordinances that are before you this evening. So would it be okay if I address all three, or do you want to do one at a time?
No, you could address all three and let us know what you're asking.
Certainly. With me tonight, I have a few members of our project team. We have Kevin Walker, who's Vice President from John Flatley Company. So I have Brandon Carr from DePreet Engineering, who's with us, and John Shevlin from Par Corporation, who conducted our traffic study and is a traffic engineer. So Brandon is with us. We have asked for the three ordinance changes that are before you this evening. He's presented some slides. He's going to kind of run through them first in the interest of time, just to kind of get this moving along. So if I could ask Brandon Carr to come forward and run through the slides for the members of the council and the public.
Thank you.
Good evening, Brandon Carr with DePreet Engineering, 2 Stafford Court, Cranston, Rhode Island. So yeah, just a short slideshow here, kind of overview. So the 3 items that we're asking the council to vote on tonight, the first would be, and it's a full report, I think, in your packet on the proposed ordinance and the changes, but this is the kind of summary to amend the city's comprehensive plans land use map from low density. Currently identifies this parcel as low density residential, and we're asking for a change to commercial mixed use. It's the same zone that I was actually here a few years ago, that a parcel on Newport Ave, a mixed use parcel, was rezoned to. So it's a similar project, just a flashback if you remember that one. The second ask would be to change the zoning of this parcel to that commercial mixed use. A description of the parcel is there. It's currently C1 and C3. It's about a 50-acre parcel, but minimum 10 acres on Wampanoag Trail, just south of Forbes Street and north of the city boundary with Barrington. And then the last one is the same ask as the second one. It's the zoning map for that change from C1 to C1. This kind of view right here is the proposed full build out of the project, and we'll get what previously approved, but currently approved on the site are the 8 multifamily buildings that you see on the left. And we're proposing this zoning ordinance change would allow us to propose a commercial section up front and a single family section in the rear of the site. So I'll just show you in a couple slides. Yep, sure. So just an overview of John Flatley Company. They've been working out at the site on Wampanoag Trail for 3 or 4 years now. They have over 20 years. They develop, build, and manage multifamily and commercial real estate, office real estate throughout New England. They're based in Massachusetts, but they have projects in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Maine, and New Hampshire. And on the right, the list of several similar projects. This first one is the 416 units they're constructing out on Wampanoag Trail. They have projects in Quincy, Mass, Nashua, Merrimack, New Hampshire, and a few other New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts projects that they're either in development now or have developed in the past. Go to the next slide. This is the site location I think you're all familiar with, but right on the western side of Wampanoag Trail, just south of Forbes Street. If you go to the next slide, there's a recent aerial of the site, so you can see the development that's been approved and is currently under construction. 6 of the 8 buildings are going vertical, 2 are occupied. The entrance off Wampanoag Trail, the clubhouse is in the center with the fitness center and other amenities there. But those first 2 buildings closest to Wampanoag Trail on the top right of this picture are the ones that are occupied, and they're kind of working their way counterclockwise around the site. Next slide, please. So just a repeat of kind of the last one, but this is the previously approved project that was approved in 2020 and 2021 and now is under construction. Next slide shows the commercial section at the front of the site that we're hoping to propose with this zone change. It would currently, our plan is that you can see the existing entrance in the apartments to the left. This would be up along the Wampanoag Trail frontage, and it's self-storage, 2-story, 30-foot high self-storage use, about 20,600 square feet footprint on the left there. And then down the bottom, 3 retail or restaurant pads, anywhere from 2,400 to the largest one, building 3 is about 11,000 square feet. But those would either be a strip retail, small, food use or something like that. Exact uses aren't identified yet, but the proposed CMU zone lists out the allowed uses. And I can go in more detail. Questions on any particular uses. And then the next slide shows the 6 single-family lots that we're proposing. This would be in the southwestern corner of the site. So you're looking from Wampanoag Trail, the rear of the site along Hospital Road. There's 6 10,000 plus or minus square foot lots. They kind of align with the R2 zoning district in dimensional. And it would be served by a road off of Hospital Road, and we're proposing a emergency access road into the apartments, but there would be no access road. It would just be gated in case we needed a second set of second access back there. John Shevlin from Par Corp is here. They did substantial traffic study for the first round of development, the apartments, and then they've amended it for this proposed use. The first project received approvals from the city and also from DOT for their access onto Wampanoag Trail. The second project we'd have to go back and amend those permits. We've updated the traffic study. If you have any specific questions, John is here to answer them tonight, but the traffic study showed that the level of service is acceptable with the proposed build out, and that the road and the current access point and access geometry would accommodate the additional uses we're proposing. And then next slide just shows the current access. It's kind of swept in and out on the southbound side of Wampanoag Trail. And we've been meeting with DOT and having conversations on kind of improving the whole area and talking about different options out here. John can get into any specifics, but they are open to discussing different things that we can do to improve, because as we've heard from the neighbors in the city, and now being residents along Wampanoag Trail, traffic is a concern out there. Next slide. I think this is the last few slides. You can flip through them quick, but these are just similar projects Flatley has done that would be kind of scale of what we're proposing up front facing Wampanoag Trail. These are the retail type uses. And then that is a very similar self-storage unit. And then that last one is just kind of that self-storage building with a view from Wampanoag Trail showing kind of the setback and the grade change in landscaping. But that's the general kind of project we're looking at, and the 3 specific asks from the city council. As I said, anyone's here to discuss traffic or any site exact questions or any questions you have.
Thank you. Members of the council, this is a public hearing. Do you have discussion or comments now, or do you want to open it up to public hearing first? Thank you. If you want to stay nearby in case there are specific questions, I will open up the public session at this time. Anyone who would like to speak on this question, please come forward. Just give your name and address for the record. Welcome. Just give your name and
How are you? My name is Frank Foti. 71 Hospital Road is where I live. Been there 37 years. So I've lived in Riverside a long time. So I actually have 2 concerns. The first one is, generally speaking, a concern, I think, for a lot of the neighbors in the neighborhood, and that's the traffic situation. If you remember, the gentleman just mentioned that this development went back 3 or 4 years. And I think initially they were approved for 300 plus units. And then during COVID, they went back and they got another 100 units. So they're at 416 now, which is great. Again, I live in Hospital Road, the bottom corner, south corner, and my front door faces the development now, which was all woods, for, as you know, it was a Leonardo farm. But my concern is the study that was done for the traffic study is, my question would be, how up to date is that? And was it initially done and approved for the 300 units? Did it take into question the other 100 units that was added? And then now, of course, the additional potential for the commercial part of the traffic coming in and out of the area and then onto the trail. So having, driving that trail every day, it can be a real concern with the traffic. So I understand that they hired the traffic, another point, they hired the traffic study, I guess. It was done, which needs to be done. But being a contractor myself, would it make sense for me to be able to hire the building inspector to do my own inspections? So doesn't it seem logical that it would be an outside person that would do the study? Like, for example, the city of East Providence. And again, I'm not against this happening. I would just like to know and be confirmed that this is the right way to go. This is what we're all happy with and the potential, seriousness of the traffic. Okay, so I think that should be taken into consideration. And then again, as you mentioned, only 2 of the buildings are occupied. Would it also make sense to occupy all the buildings and then do the study and then see if the area can handle more traffic? That's not my expertise. But I'll leave it up to you guys.
So is your concern mainly traffic? What about the layout, designs, the additional?
I was excited at the beginning with all the green space that we're gonna have with just the apartments. But I don't know. I don't want to get into the other stuff. I'm happy that there aren't dirt bikes there, which is what we handled for 30 years.
Right.
And I'm not against progress. City of East Providence can use that. So that's just my thought as far as the study goes. Attending all these meetings, many of the neighbors voiced the same concerns. They even talked about maybe because of the traffic, there could be maybe a light put at Forbes Street where it meets the trail. Well, that's a whole nother ballgame, just to stop that traffic because they're coming up the hill and then turning in and coming out. It could present a real serious situation. It does not, but that's not my expertise. The other second point is on Hospital Road, where I live, coming down the end where they want to put the 6 houses. Okay. Now, right now, there's a right of way that goes through my property and continues down into several other neighbors, maybe 10 of us. And it's falling apart. It's dilapidated. It's a problem for rescue and fire truck vehicles. They can't even go down the road. It's been like that forever. But the city doesn't own it. They do their best to maintain it. But whose responsibility is to maintain the road? But again, it's been like that for years. Mrs. Boyle always said if they ever developed the Leonardo Farm, well, that would be the time that they would put a new road in. So that's why I see the potential for those new houses, the possibility for that to become the new road for the Hospital Road residents that are on the opposite side of where those houses are. So that could be a plus for them and for us if it was done properly. Also with utilities, water, sewer, electric, and just be a real road for the first time in 40 years.
To your knowledge, and I don't mean to ask you, but you may know, you've lived there so long. At one point, there were not sewers, I know, in some of that area. Are we sewered yet?
Not at all. It stops at the top of Hospital Road.
Okay, thought so.
Yeah. So, but of course, with the new development, those apartments, they'll have sewers, and they're actually, at eye level to where I am. So whether that could be, the new houses will have to have it. I guess they would plan on connecting to whatever is in the development, the apartments. I don't know how they would do that. But the old road where I live, again, it's 1 lane only. If you drive down it and another car is coming the opposite direction, you got to pull over. My driveway is used a circle driveway to get around that. But this could be a time for that to be corrected. So just a thought that if those houses are approved, I know in other areas of East Providence, when they have a dead end street, they put a circle at the end so that fire trucks can go down, turn around, and then come back out. I think that would be something that could be considered in this development too, But again, it could be a win-win for all of us if it's done properly. That's all.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much. Anyone else? Gert was up first, and then you can go, sir. Okay, she defers to you.
Gotta be quick around here. John Heaney, 11 Hollow Ridge Road, Rumford. I was not really interested in this until I heard the presentation. And I heard the phrase 3-story self-storage unit. Is it 2-story? So I don't know if this is a problem because there was no presentation on the actual building, but we had this issue in Providence before we moved to Rumford, where one of these self-storage units was built across the highway from us. And there's this weird loophole they seem to have found where I'm sure you've seen these in Providence, which, by the way, I don't know if they still do, but they put a moratorium on self-storage units because there's so much hostility towards them. But you've seen these buildings going down 95 or Route 10 where they're a glass front and they're all lit from the inside and it looks like windows, but those are not actually windows. It's just branding. So they really should be zoned or treated in, as far as zoning ordinances go, as signs, not as windows. So we had one directly across from our house. That thing lit up every room facing the highway. Once they put that, and 24/7. I shouldn't say 24/7, obviously not during the day. Every day of the week, every night, all hours, with no reduction of the light at any time. So this is a weird loophole, I think, that they've discovered, but you know, I would just be concerned about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Gert?
Gert DeQuinzio, Hospital Road. My concerns are with the 6 homes that they want to put on Hospital Road going into their property. When this project was first presented to the neighbors, it was supposed to be 8 units with a lot of green space, walking trails, all kinds of amenities where it was going to be not invasive. And everybody was thrilled with that. They put a water line in so that people can now hook up to that. But now it seems like since that, I think one of the men from the planning board had the original proposal, which showed everything that they were supposed to offer and supposed to have. And that's now changed to where now they're taking that, what do you call, the second bite out of the apple, where now they're coming back to you and they want to put this giant storage unit in the front, basically a little mini mall in there as well, which all adds more traffic, more cars going in and out. And they want to put these 6 homes on the edge of the property that belongs to them where the water line was run. But they want to use 10,000 whatever square foot lots. The people on the extension of Hospital Road for years over time, different intervals, have tried to build on their properties, which 2 of mine are 18,000 plus, or 3 of mine actually are 18,000 plus square footage, and we were never allowed to build. Not enough space, it wasn't big enough. But yet they're asking to put 6 homes on this little strip at only 10,000, plus or minus a little square footage. And when you go into the end, there's actually no place to put cul-de-sac because the property goes in an angle and it meets the last property owner on the extension of Hospital Road. It abuts his property. So in order to do anything, you have to go in and turn around in somebody's driveway and come back out. There's no cul-de-sac room available in there. There's a fire hydrant right on the corner, so you can't just go through somebody's property to get in and out. In the old Hospital Road that we live on is a winding 1-lane road that's got potholes by the tons, and it's a dead end. So first, I'm disappointed that they're trying to get more than what they asked for originally, and now they're adding more traffic with all of these things to the existing proposal. And at one of the planning board meetings, one of the other residents did a little research and found that there were several accidents already right in front of that complex on the trail. So your traffic issue is another major consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Grant.
Council President, can I just comment a second?
Yes, please.
So I know you saw proposed development plans. The issue before you is the changing the zone from residential to mixed use. Mixed use. To the extent that the council decides, assuming they say yes, the issues of what the lots are going to look like, that's all going to go before planning, subdivision regulations. They can decide maybe, make the lots bigger. The lots that you're seeing there are not necessarily the lots you're approving. You're just approving that's their proposal that they would likely get approval for. But you're just approving the change of the zone to allow some mixed use, residential and commercial, as well as to change the comprehensive plan to conform to the zoning. So it gets a little confusing, but I do, and Keith is here, our director of planning, but I just want to make it clear, and maybe he can confirm this, that if the zone is changed, all this other stuff that people are talking about, which are all legitimate concerns, I'm not suggesting they're not, would be dealt with part of the development review process and the planning process. Just want to make that clear. You're not, and even the self-storage. Self-storage is a permitted use in a mixed-use commercial zone, as it's currently stated, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to put that's their intention, I guess, but it doesn't mean that they're going to put it there. I just want to make that clear.
So at that point, would those issues go before the planning board as a final step or come back to us?
So the zone is. The
Zone
use-
would be here.
The uses of what's allowed in that zone are before you tonight. So once you approve that, and if you approve it, then those uses can be either permitted as a matter of right, or some of them I think are special use permit. Those are all listed in the ordinance. As far as what the lots look like, whether there's a cul-de-sac, all that other stuff, access to sewer, water, that's all planning department.
Conclusively, it does not come back.
Does not come back to you.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Please come forward.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Just
My
give
name's
me-
Mary Savigny. I live on Hospital Road, the end of Hospital Road, right across from the tennis club.
Welcome.
And the only concern I really have is really the traffic on Wampanoag Trail. All right. They did the traffic study, so-called, during 2020, they went back to. And if we all remember, in 2020, majority of us were in house confinement because of COVID. So you cannot go by those numbers. Those numbers are way, way off. I mean, just this morning alone, I sat in Bella's parking lot at 9 o'clock this morning. I counted cars going into Providence. I counted 178, just within like 10 minutes or so. People going into Providence. That highway is used in a lot more than people really actually know about. And when you're coming off of Forbes Street to get onto the highway, your best bet is to get over to the high-speed lane, because when they come out of the apartment buildings, they're doing like 10 miles in front of you. You know, and there's been a death there of a guy on a motor months ago, and there's been a couple of other accidents. And also, one day I noticed a school bus stops right on Wampanoag Trail and lets the kids out, where it could be going into the apartments for safety reasons.
But they fixed that.
I haven't seen the school bus, but I travel the trail every day, so
Right.
they haven't done another.
Well, we were told that the school buses are now going into the
They are
property.
going into it. That's
Yes.
good. But the traffic study is completely off. It's completely off. I don't even know, they took away the turnaround that we used to be over there. They took away that because there were so many accidents. You know, so there's gonna have to something be done. Now, with the 6 new units that you want to put in, where are those people leaving? Like, how are they getting onto the trail? Are they coming from Hospital Road, or are they going right out to the trail? Because we were told that when that was all being put together, that Hospital Road would only be used for emergency vehicles, police, fire, vehicles like that. Now, the 6 units, are they going, how are they getting in and out of there? their access from Hospital Road. So they see there's more traffic on Hospital Road. We also have a tennis club in Hospital Road. We also have Kemben on Hospital Road. And also too, can our septic system handle all these things that are going on in the city? There's a lot of building going on in our city, a lot of apartments and a lot of building going on. Where I would think that we would fill what we got first before we move forward. I mean, everybody wants the city to grow, but we're also taking away all our greenland too. We have no greenland left. All our nature is getting hit by cars on Wampanoag Trail. They don't know where to go. I mean, I don't mind them down behind my house. You can't build anything back there. I have solar panels. That's another thing, solar panels behind me. We were promised pine trees so we wouldn't see them. We never got those. So who's to say everything that they're saying we're gonna get, you know? My concern is definitely the traffic. Because even the tennis people, they fly up and down that street. They don't know what 25 or 20 miles an hour. They just go up and down it quick. I mean, the people on the trail are flying along, you know, you're trying to get out in front of them. They're doing like 75 miles. Then no one does a speed limit. So that's my main concern. And also the fact that we've promised that the only things on Hospital Road that would be used would be for emergency vehicles only. But now we have workers parking there. We have trucks parking there. We have all kinds of things. There's no parking signs on one side. I mean, so we can get in and out of our own street.
Thank you. Could the developer answer, or someone with the company answer the question about traffic studies in terms of when was it done and did you hire and who conducted it?
Sure. John Shevlin from Park Corporation is here. He's, despite what some of the neighbors may think, he's actually certified. He is an expert. I know that they weren't happy at the planning board meeting about what he had to say. He can certainly speak about the methodology and what he did. But some of the misinformation that you've heard is frankly not true. So we would like to clear that up. So Mr. Shevlin is present and so yes, we did hire him it was one of the things that came up at one of the planning board meetings. Obviously, traffic's a concern. We want to address that. And we went out, even though we weren't required to, and we hired Park Corporation to do the traffic study. Going forward, this traffic study will have to be peer reviewed, which Mr. Shevlin can talk about. But really, there was no other mechanism unless the neighbors wanted to, or the city certainly wasn't going to incur the expense for our traffic study. So really the only way that we could do it was for us to pay for it. And we did that at the request of the residents and the planning board. There was no nefarious intent that we went out to try and find someone. Mr. Shevlin's a professional. He's certified, and I think he can speak to that and some of the other projects that he's done.
Thank you.
Thank you. And good evening. For the record, my name is John Shevlin, Park Corporation, 8 Blackstone Valley Place, Lincoln, Rhode Island. And just to answer some of the questions, yes, we were hired to go ahead and do a traffic study for this development. Not only is it needed as far as getting approval from the town, but we also need to go to Rhode Island Department of Transportation. That's part of the permit process that they have for any change of use on a property on a state highway. Includes site plans, drainage, traffic, and that's their main concerns to make sure we're not going to be impacting the stormwater system or the traffic on a abutting roadway. As Mr. Carr mentioned, we have started conversations with DOT to try to go ahead and make the access in and out of the site as safe as possible. Couple alternatives, and as we develop the project and go ahead and pull together everything, we will be going ahead and submitting that and meeting with DOT as far as getting that approved. We are looking to put in some deceleration lanes in and out into the site to get the traffic going in out of the traffic way, and also an acceleration lane as you pull out. To answer some of the questions as far as the study and when it was done, I think the question was asked in regards to up to date. Our traffic counts were done in September of 2023. Referring saying that we did this in 2020, we had an original study for the development for the residential portion of it. When this phase of the project came into play, we did a brand new study that took into account all the uses for the site. So we did traffic counts in September. The only thing in our report that goes back to 2020 is per a traffic study, you want to take a look at safety issues. So you get crash data. Crash data usually goes back over a 3-year period to see if there's a history. We requested that information from the East Providence Police Department and Barrington Police Department.
We received that information, we analyzed that in regards to the crashes that are occurring within Wampanoag Trail, within the study area. I will bring up one item in regards to the death that was on Wampanoag Trail. That was not in our study. It came up at the planning board meeting. I reached out to the police department the next day after that meeting just to mention that it came up and we had no records of it. The woman that I was working with did apologize. She put the request in for the crashes over the 3-year period. She wasn't sure why the system did not spit that one out. So she went ahead and she did apologize. I sent an email actually to the planner that day just to show him in regards to, what I testified and what we had was not included in, her email that she sent me. But, just I'll be a real brief, we did take a look for the study for look at traffic safety and capacity with the uses that they have in here, the level of service when we compare them it just shows how a roadway and intersections operate. There's a very minor reduction in regards to the amount of delay that occurs. So the capacity, we don't see that being a major issue. As far as safety, there was crashes along that roadway. I think between the two the two turnarounds over a 3-year period, there was 30 crashes. Some were rear ends at some of the intersecting streets and some of the businesses coming onto the roadway. There's a couple that are side swipes, and yes, there was a couple that occurred with people losing control of their car, single vehicle accidents and stuff. But we didn't see any pattern that showed a concern. The fatality, again, we're not sure exactly how that happened, where the bicyclist was in regards to what occurred, but that's something that it's hard to tell whether it's regards to anything in regards to the driver to the operator. We took a look in regards to safety as far as getting in and out of the site, as far as sight lines up and down the road based on speeds, based on sight lines, and that all meets requirements of the engineering standards. So we just feel that the study that we did in summary is that, it's not going to have any significant decrease in safety or capacity of the roadway system.
Thank you. We're still in a public hearing. Did anyone else in the neighborhood want to, or anywhere in the city, to speak on this before I go to the council comments? Forward.
Nancy Hale, 889 Bullocks Point Avenue. I'm just want to say something as a sort of umbrella comment about all of the developments that are being considered.
Well, the public
slowly
hearing
being
is just for
approved.
this development.
All right, so I'm limited to that.
Yep.
I don't know how we can move forward with anything without the comprehensive plan. Okay? Do this neighborhood and this development and Metacomet Green and this one and that one. So I would say to table any approval of any add-ons and et cetera. And the traffic studies are, you do it, it depends what season, it depends upon what year. If you do it during a COVID year, I mean, I would like the council to listen to the long-term residents, listen to them. They know the issues. We have similar concerns throughout the city. It's obvious if you've been here for many, many meetings. And did I hear this correctly? Comprehensive plan is 8 years overdue?
Correct.
Okay. It's kind of like having a mission statement for any organization. You need that before you can make all the little decisions.
Thank you. Council Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm going to keep it open for a minute. Was there anyone else who wanted to speak? Okay, so planner, Keith, if you want to come forward, I think you were going to question in any of it. Before the planner continues, did you want to add something different, something else, or you want to hear from him first? Or? Councilman will yield to the planner. Thank you, sir.
Hi, good evening. I want to clarify one thing, which is I believe it was the applicant's intention to have a maximum of 22,000 square feet of self-storage, of maximum footprint of 22,000 square foot self-storage. Is that the case? Okay. So that's something where the text doesn't exactly say that. So I just want to clarify that's their, yeah. That's their intent. So in the proposed ordinance, we're looking at page 6 of 8. It's 19-360.2 B 2, where so self-storage is a maximum of 22,000 square feet. Should say footprint. Which could be a total of 44,000 square feet for a 2-story building.
Councilman, you want to?
Thank you, Mr. President. Director, I've heard a lot of talk about traffic studies. Could you tell me the last time that you have on file that the state of Rhode Island did a traffic study? I would presume with Wampanoag Trail being a very high-density traveled road, and I've lived here my whole life, and there's always been controversy on the trail that the DOT regularly, or I don't know what regularly is, does traffic studies, because I'd like to see, do you have a copy of the last time DOT did a traffic study on Wampanoag Trail, sir?
I don't. I'm not aware of the most recent one there.
How long would it take you to call DOT and for us to get a traffic study?
It shouldn't take long just for them to send what they have.
Would, in the capacity of the planning department with this development or any development, wouldn't you think it would be proper for the city to ask the state or you do your own traffic study instead of relying on a party that, again, the party did their due diligence. They hired this gentleman who is very reputable. I'm not doing this, but I would think that this city's planning department would reach out to the state's DOT for traffic studies.
Well, the way it typically is done for developments is that the applicant hires a traffic engineer who analyzes the traffic situation. In some cases, the city can have it peer reviewed. We don't do that for all of them, usually at the request of the planning board, the council. But because the traffic studies usually analyze a specific development, where if the state has some sort of study on Wampanoag Trail, it doesn't analyze their development. It might just look at safety, it might just look at traffic counts there. But the applicants do usually hire the traffic expert who would do this.
I understand that, but it would be fair that the state would, I thank you for your response, but it would be fair that the state would have, if they said there were 300 cars an hour, I'm just throwing it out, the state would have a report saying maybe it's 500 cars an hour. I'm just throwing out numbers. So the state does do these traffic studies throughout the state and everything, and Wampanoag Trail being it. I'm just asking a question as to where we have these reports. And I think moving forward with all the development that potentially could be going on in the city, that if it's on state roads, besides the testimony from a traffic study from a developer, which I am not questioning is wrong or they tried to do it, but it's like one of those things when you're in real estate, now you hire your own real estate agent versus that. I would like to see the information that the state has. Thank you. Moving forward, if you don't mind doing that for us.
Yeah, we'll see what they have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Seeing no one else, I'll ask one last time. Well, just this part, that's okay. I'll close this part of the public hearing and open it up to the council. Councilman Lawson.
Okay, so I'm a no on this for the fact that you're asking us to amend a comprehensive plan that's 8 years out of date. We were told we're getting residential with green walkways. And has been mentioned, it seems this city, developers come in with a plan and then all of a sudden, I think the term was another bite at the apple. But at some point, we got to decide the direction of this city. Are we looking to just build, or do we want to kind of maintain the character of our city? I represent Riverside, and we have a few strip malls with empty storefronts. So I'm puzzled why the planning department would try to support another strip mall build. I heard overwhelmingly that they don't want the self-storage from the residents. I had a town hall meeting. I've been talking to residents. So this isn't just me. This is feedback from the neighbors. We talk a lot about affordable housing, but yet we're talking about building 10,000 square foot lots. I don't see how that's solving the affordable housing crisis in this city. So for those reasons, I, at this point, will not be supporting the zone change from the residential to the commercial. I just want to be very clear on my reasons for the applicants, but I will not be supporting this.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else on the council, any comments? Councilwoman Souza.
Thank you, Council President. Just to reemphasize what the councilman mentioned, I have in previous development meetings before us stated the same concerns. We are piecemealing zoning changes throughout the city without a big picture plan. We are a city that is not against development, but we don't have a comprehensive idea across the city of what that plan should look like. We're just building blocks across the city, hoping that it looks and works out well for everybody around us, and it's not. There are plans that come before us, and to the point that was mentioned earlier, once the zoning has been approved and all of the uses that are not limited to now are on the table for that developer to choose from. And then it goes before planning, and then it's at the discretion of the planning board to either amend, ask for additional studies, or to do some restrictions. I've been sitting here where a restriction was put in place for a developer and then it got changed and the developer did the opposite or went again for another bite of the apple. It's a nice phrase that was used tonight. And it was then changed to how they initially wanted it because they went into another phase. So I don't support, again, these piecemeal developments around the city that don't have a bigger picture plan from our planning board or that have come before the council for a big picture approval. It doesn't make sense. Safety is always an issue in our community with our roads. It happens in our inner community, and it is also now expanding to our thoroughways, which include the Wampanoag Trail, similar to what will be happening on Newport Avenue once and if that development also continues. We'll be facing some of that too. So I like what's there. I drive it. I've gone and seen it recently, and I think they've done a wonderful job, and I think the neighborhood appreciates it. But I don't think that we need a mixed use in that area. I think the use that was provided and approved for can still remain that use and that it can still be a nice development and continue with the development, but moving forward to additional uses isn't necessary in that area. There are plenty of other places in the city that provide for these uses that someone could inhabitate along with that road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman? Councilman Rigo? Well, before we get to the motion of Councilman Fogarty, general comments or the issues that I have are we kind of stalled with several developments in the city. One of the largest projects on Newport Avenue hasn't even put a shovel in the ground yet. They can't find the right businesses to come in. They may be looking to change. We also have a couple of others that are looking for an anchor store and then smaller businesses. And it seems to be a problem statewide. There are supply side issues with ordering equipment. So I'm not ready to support a change yet when we don't know if any of these developments will ever get off the ground. Neighbors seem to like the current project. As someone said earlier, and most of us here grew up with Leonardo Farm, and after that closed, we know that it became a large, desolate racetrack for mini bikes and other problems. And what is going on there now is much better, in my opinion, and it looks nice. But do we want to open it up at this point? That's why I can't support it. Before you make a motion or anything, I see the gentleman is up to you. Do you want to have a final say or an additional say? Or? Well, it's the
I
applicant.
appreciate it, Mr. President. I'll be brief. I would like to just make a couple of comments if I could.
Sure.
So thank you. I appreciate that. So a couple of things that we've heard. Yes, we did put forward an application several years ago. We never said that we were never going to come back. It's a 53-acre parcel. It's a very large parcel. So there were plans that this was going to potentially be some other uses on this property. So people saying we're coming back for a second bite, we never said we were not going to come back, and that's why we're here tonight. This has been a long process. We've worked extensively with the planning department, zoning department, the mayor's office. This is a very thoughtful project that we have a very well-respected developer who wants to come and make additional investments here in East Providence. We can develop this site by right. There are things that we can do. So we could further develop this. We don't even need permission for. So we were trying to find a No, it's not a threat. No, I'm just making a comment.
Yeah, point of order.
Not at all, sir.
Point of
Not at all,
order.
just a comment.
Let him finish.
Oh, it's not at all. And if it came off that way, I completely apologize.
It did come out.
To say it did.
Point of order.
Okay, let him finish, and then
So,
we'll move.
as far as we have listened to some of the people who are going to be moving into that site, who are residents of the city, who have mentioned to us that we could further put amenities in that would service those 416 units there. One of the things that came up was the possibility of self-storage, because a lot of people that are moving into these apartments are downsizing. They don't have a place to store their items. We had proposed that to be an amenity for the residents there. There's a captive audience, if you will. And the reason why the self-storage was designed that way was at the ask first aesthetics. The windows piece of it was put in the ordinance. That wasn't something that we had requested. That was something that was requested by staff, and we were amenable to that. The other piece was to have that screened with trees so it wouldn't be visible from Wampanoag Trail and to try and do that. One of the other pieces of this is that we have pledged to maintain green space there, and we're going to fulfill that pledge. There will be trees, there will be landscaping, all of those things. This development is still in process. We have still buildings that haven't even begun to go up yet. So as you all know, that it doesn't make sense for us to start putting landscaping in while we're still doing construction. So we have made that commitment. If we need to put it in writing, and we're happy to do that. So we plan on fulfilling the pledge. Like I said, John Flatley is one of the most reputable developers in the Northeast. They have an outstanding reputation, and Mr. Flatley plans on continuing that reputation. One of the things that the initial residences was not in our initial plan, and that was something that came up in conversations with the city staff and the mayor's staff, that this may be a good opportunity for people to have single-family houses in East Providence, and that's where the idea came up. There were some discussions about the possibility of an affordable housing piece to that. We've had those discussions. We're not opposed to that. There is a housing crunch in Rhode Island, as everybody's aware of, so this was a way for us to try and work with concerns that came up. As you heard earlier, that we did run a water line for all of the residents on Hospital Road. We're trying to be a good neighbor. We're trying to address those concerns. This is not some big developer who's coming in to try and ruin East Providence. We want to try and provide for the residents here, the people who are coming to live in our residences there and try and provide them amenities. And that's where the piece came up about some of the small retail. There was some thoughts about a restaurant, coffee shop, cigar bar, brewery, some of the amenities that would service that neighborhood and also the place that we have where there's going to be a significant number of people that don't have access to those amenities. So that was things that we looked at, and we've worked with the staff to try and develop what would be something that would fit in that area. We understand that there's traffic concerns. We do. And we've taken steps to try and address that. We've given our word that we'll continue to work with DOT. We actually were the ones, we asked for a traffic light there. DOT told us no. We've already said that we'd be happy to work with the local and state delegation to try and work to find some solutions to resolve some of the traffic issues on Wampanoag Trail. Those traffic issues, even if we don't do any further development, those traffic issues exist today, and they're going to affect our residents who live there. So we would like to try and resolve those. We don't want to have unhappy residents. Mr. Flatley plans on keeping this property, as he does all of his properties once he develops them. So he's not somebody who comes in and turns and burns. So he plans on having these property long-term. He wants his residents to be happy with, if people can't get in and out of there, they're not going to stay. They're not going to renew their leases. So it benefits us, it benefits you folks to try and make sure that we address these problems as they've come up. I know that self-storage has become unpopular with certain people. That would still require a special use permit from the zoning board. So there's no guarantee that we would even get self-storage. The point's been made by planning that we do have to go back to the planning board if you allow us to, if you change this zone to allow for the mixed use to go forward, which currently, and this was not a threat, it was just a statement, it doesn't allow for a restaurant in the current. So that's why we're asking for the change. Those are some of the things that, one of the things that we're looking to do would be to bring in a small restaurant, coffee shop, et cetera, to try and provide amenities for our residents. And so I appreciate your time. This is a thoughtful development. It's good for East Providence. It's good for your tax base. It's good for the residents. It's good for development. And I think this is a positive for the community and for the people that live in those units and surrounding neighborhoods. So thank you very much for your time.
Sure. Thank you. Clarification. I'll close the full hearing at this time. Mr. Solicitor, do we need to vote on each of the three separately?
So the most important one right at this point is the amendment of the comprehensive plan. If the comprehensive plan is not amended, then the zoning doesn't have to be touched because the comprehensive plan has to conform with the zoning. So if you don't pass one, then we'll just table the other two. So that's-
I'll make a motion that we do not pass the zoning change from residential to mixed use commercial.
Second.
One second.
On the motion, discussion?
No.
So the first item either goes up or down. If it goes down, you want us to table the next two items? But we can still vote on them and vote them down too at this time.
But they would have no legal effect because
I mean, so it doesn't, so as soon as, so, yeah, so the only way 2 and 3 proceed is if one passes.
state law says that your zoning ordinance has to conform to the comprehensive plan. First item, and with all due respect to Councilman Lawson, the motion is not to amend the zoning. The first item is to amend the comprehensive plan. So that, yes, yes. So
When does it not become legal?
the next plan.
Let's stick to the motion. Motion by Councilman
Okay,
Lawson to,
I just want to clarify, his motion was to not amend the zoning. That's not before you. That's number two.
the comprehensive plan.
Madam Clerk, am I correct? Did he make a motion not to amend the zoning?
Yes, that was his motion.
Okay.
Okay,
So I'll
so-
amend the motion to reject the change to the comprehensive plan from item 1.
Motion made by Councilman Lawson, was seconded by Councilman Fogarty.
Um,
Any other discussion?
Can I just be clarified? It's not to reject the changes, it's to not amend the
To
comprehensive
deny
plan.
the amendment.
Deny the amendment.
Right.
Do we need the clerk to read it again to be,
Just be clear, good.
to be
point.
clear?
Let's do
That's
that.
what, thank you.
Clerk, could you read the motion?
Motion or
The motion.
Motion.
The motion is to deny the amendment to the city's comprehensive plan dated 2010 to 2015 land use map from low density residential to commercial mixed use for the subject apartments, Christine Apartments at 1279 Wampanoag Trail.
And that was seconded by Councilman Fogarty. Could you call a roll of the council?
Councilman Fogarty,
Aye.
Councilman Lawson.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rigo,
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Before I make my vote, I just wanted to mention, thank you for coming up and speaking again on the clarifications. I will say that the commercial use, though the thought of having other amenities in that area is beneficial to those who live there, the city of East Providence is full of restaurants and shops and boutiques and has cigar bars that we welcome new developments and residents to go and enjoy and promote the existing small businesses that are here in the city versus just adding more and taking away from those established already in the city. So again, I think it'd be nice to share the wealth in that aspect. My motion is aye.
Not a motion, you need your vote.
Council President Rodrick.
Aye. So it is denied 5-0. Thank you to the applicants for your time and for the residents who spoke.
Got a question through the chair to the solicitor.
Councilman.
Number 2 and number 3 at this time, do we need to make a motion to table these?
Just to be clear, I would table them.
Okay, I would make a motion to table indefinitely item number 2. If the clerk, does she need to read okay, I make a motion.
Second.
Motion made by Council Vice President Rigo to table, seconded by Council.
Indefinitely.
Definitely. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Yeah, do you want to do the same for the next item?
Mr. President, again, I make a motion to table indefinitely question number 3.
Same motion, seconded by
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have that table. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Next item.
For first passage, an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 18 of the revised ordinances of the City of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended entitled Vehicles and Traffic. Summary, Section 18-307, no parking, Warren Avenue, North Side from Purchase Street, east 60 feet. Sponsor Councilwoman Souza.
Thank you, Madam
Councilwoman
Clerk.
Souza.
Thank you, Madam Clerk and Mr. President. So this came about in a conversation at our last council meeting that the corner of Warren Avenue Purchase is very difficult to come off of Purchase Ave onto Warren Ave. There have been complaints of safety concerns, not being able to see, having to inch out, near accidents occurring on a regular basis. So this is in an effort to allow additional room for vehicles to look out into the lane coming down Warren Avenue so that there is a safe exit off of Purchase Street onto Warren Avenue. So I move for first passage.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Souza for first passage, seconded by Councilman Lawson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have that 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Next, please.
Under continued business, discussion and overview of comprehensive changes to the East Providence zoning code as required by changes in state law and other relevant updates. Item A, receive report from planning of delineation of changes required by law and other relevant updates.
I haven't had a chance to really dig into 250 pages yet, so.
Oh,
me
either.
So, Council President, if I may. So just to be clear, we know that this plan is going before the planning board on the 4th of December, in front of the planning board, and they will review or should be reviewing and then would provide potentially any changes or keep it status quo. If there are changes, will we then be receiving a new amended version of what we have with the changes to anything that the planning board does?
They can only make recommendation changes.
Right.
They don't make changes.
Right, but recommendation of changes, just like the recommendations that were before us.
You'll get the recommendations, but they can't make. They physically.
I understand. Oh, okay, so I understand that. So my question again then is, will we have a memo with their recommendations, or will we be seeing any of those in the potential packet that exists?
It's a question for the planning director.
Thank you, Keith.
Yes, if the planning board makes any recommendations, we'll definitely give you a memo spelling out what those are.
Okay, and so that'll be ready after their meeting.
Right, right.
And did we receive, I don't recall if we received that delineation between state law and what was done.
Yes, in your packets was a memo that spelled that out. You know, what was required, what was purely optional, and what was sort of in the middle.
It was in a table format. Is that what I?
Right.
Okay. I saw that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Rigo?
Yeah, well, thank you, Director Burns, for the update that you gave us in regards to fully optional changes, you know, number 2s and, you know, number 3, as far as changes involving no discretion. My question, and also providing the documents from the state with enabling legislation. I guess this question would be more towards the solicitor. Obviously, we can't change anything that the state has mandated. And there's been a lot of time and effort put in from you and the planning department, I would presume, by looking at this information. State law goes into effect at the time it says it is. What happens if we do not move on the city items and we want to look at them?
On the city, the non-discretion, the
Non-discretion.
non-mandated
Yeah, the
ones?
Non-mandated ones. They stay in.
They stay the same.
Stay the same. Okay.
Some of them might be interrelated. I haven't gone through them, but some of them might be affected by the state.
Yeah, but if they're not affected by the state changes and they're proposed by the administration and the planning board, I mean, planning department, we can take our time. We can take our time and go through this 260 pages.
The reason why we gave this so early is because it is a lot. There's no question there's a lot
Yeah.
of information. We want you to be familiar with it. This is all, probably to most of you, something you don't really read on a daily basis. It's kind of technical and very kind of boring, honestly, but it has a lot of effect.
Oh, it's very interesting to see what was trying to be moved from both the state level and the city level. So there's not really a need for us, especially with the planning board meeting in a couple of weeks. So there's no really, when it was said that we had 6 weeks, we really don't have 6 weeks as far as the things that we can look at. We could be until February as far as the optional items that.
On the optional, you can take
Yeah.
forever you want, but
That's
there
what I
are
mean.
certain things that definitely have to be
Yeah.
put on by January 1st, before January 1st.
The ones obviously dictated by the state.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think you, Director, you were going to try to separate that and give us a list.
Yeah, and that was
That's
included.
that's complete.
Yeah, that was included. in
So
your
we
packet.
have that. We can. So it's a good point. We can slow down on the other stuff.
Everything will be advertised for change. To the extent
Right.
Mm-hmm.
that you table it or not take up the changes, that's your.
So if we, so we can take our time, for the optional item.
That's right. And the optional items, I should point out, are a tiny fraction of the whole thing. And one of the optional items, though, is relief for restaurants with outdoor dining. And there is a bit of a time concern with that because the protections they have under state law are going away sometime in April.
I'm not going to kick we're not going to kick the can that bad. We're not that bad. We're not going to wait on something like that till April. But when we say take our time, obviously we're not going to be till April.
It was just a lot, just a big document.
Right, it is, yeah. And there's also, you're not seeing the subdivision half of the regulations that has to go before the planning board, so it's sort of
I imagine.
double this.
But yeah, definitely the outdoor dining. That's something that we've heard from many restaurant owners that they'd be interested in. So absolutely.
Any other discussion on this? Go ahead.
Just what, I mean, we're going to do the vote, but doesn't state law supersede? So even if, God
Oh, no.
forbid, we couldn't make a vote for whatever reason, that
So the state law has some pretty significant penalties if you don't make the changes. For instance, if you don't have special categories, criteria for special use permits under the current zoning, in other words, like say a gas station has a special use permit, or the self-storage, as you said.
so we're just updating to conform with the new state laws.
Let me just finish my thought. So on the self-storage that you heard tonight, that's a special use permit. If we don't adopt criteria for a self-storage special use permit, another specific criteria to that use,
Mhm.
January 1st, and I'm just picking this up because we just talked about it. The state law says it automatically becomes a permitted use. In other words, it's a permitted use. The developer could come in tomorrow and after January 2nd, put an application in and start building it because it's a permitted use. So there are penalties. When I say penalties, there are some downsides by not acting by January 1st.
So a property zoned residential now, state law allows them to build a self-storage unit?
No. I'm saying if a property allowed, the underlying.
If it was already, yeah, okay, yeah.
But if a self-storage unit was allowed in a permitted zone by a special use permit,
Gotcha.
and we don't adopt criteria for that specific to a self-storage unit, the law says that automatically, and as of January 1st, it becomes a permitted use. In other words, there's no review by the zoning board. It's permitted as a matter of right. So they could just go forward and put an application for a building permit, and they would be permitted. There'd be no zoning review whatsoever. That's one of the most onerous changes, I think, that comes to mind. But there are other quote unquote downsides by not adopting by January 1st.
Will allow us to put our own footprint on, either tighten the regulations or.
But I
yeah,
encourage you guys to read this stuff carefully, and to the extent you have questions or concerns, get them to us before your December 19th hearing. So we'll be happy to answer these questions. This is like every town is going through this because everyone's in a rush because the state honestly did not give cities and towns enough time to get this done. They gave us basically 6 months and it took them 3 months to come up with something. There's a
Thank
lot.
you. This
There's a
was
lot.
just for information at this point. Any other
Just a quick
questions?
question. So when did the state provide this to the city?
The law was passed in June, and we were waiting for, they hired, they made grants available, and the state planning office said they were going to give cities and towns templates to help them guide these changes. We didn't wait for those templates. I think we just got those last month.
Yeah.
We didn't wait. We went ahead, and then we got the templates, and now we're, and so,
But you started in June or July?
Yeah, about that to get this together. And we also recently received a grant for some consultant help with this and other things involving the land use regulations with housing going into next year. So just recently, we've had a consultant look at this stuff too and provide recommendations. So even though we started this months ago, it's been an ongoing process where we're still like up against it and going
Director, I
forward.
have a question. When you received the mandates, were the mandates, the verbiage are the same that was presented to the council, or did you make additional amendments to that verbiage?
Well, as you'll see in the memo, some things are identical to the state. Other things are more of a judgment call where the state might have said, you have to do this. There's a minimum of this, maximum of that. And there are a lot of things where we had to go through and decide what was appropriate for this city.
Based off of the current comprehensive plan, or what you intend the comprehensive plan to be?
Really the current comprehensive plan. And
Would that have included that, this ordinance that was before us today?
no, because we had to change the comprehensive plan.
So we're talking about applying.
This is zoning, which is also what we're going to be looking through. So would this zoning have matched?
We're not changing. Any,
Oh, no.
We're not changing any uses in this plan. We're changing administration. Here's an example.
Well, I guess my concern is the time, right? So we just received this, and your office has had it, or the administration's office has had it since June, let's say beginning of July. And if we knew that the state had specific mandates, wouldn't it have been prudent to share some of that with the council, even though you were looking at changing or amending or quite fitting certain things to be for the city? In other words, you've had more time to look at this than the city council will have time to look at this, who is the deciding body on whether or not we're going to pass it.
But you're not the deciding body because all these are mandated. So the.
Well, we have to look at, so
So for instance, they changed the quorum of the zoning board
Mhm.
from 3 votes from supermajority to 4 to 3. You have no choice in that. You have to change that law. And you can't keep it at 4.
right, so then why wouldn't that have just been sent over to us versus this 400 packet of
Because
documents that we have to now
It
look?
was all done in a comprehensive way. There are all other things that have been changed as well.
I understand that, but now we're having to go through all of that to get to the vote in 3 weeks.
Gave it to you.
You're saying, and you're saying more the law itself, like it would have been helpful to send you just the laws.
All I would have sent you is the statutes. Here's the changes that we have to make. And we have to go now
Right,
and change the.
you could have
change the
sent that in
language.
an ordinance, so we knew what we had to vote on.
Said what in an ordinance?
The state statutes that we need to approve so that we don't have penalties.
But it has to be prepared
has
into
to-
our regulations.
Here's the difference. These are changes that have to be, first of all, recommended by the planning board. Then they have to be advertised for a certain period. Then they have to have a public hearing on it. So there's all timeframes that we're trying to meet for January 1st. These were all known when the legislation was passed, no question about that, but it takes time for the planning board and the planning department to go through these and figure out under our current ordinances what language needs to be changed.
How many times has it come before the planning board?
It's been within the department.
Okay, so not the planning.
One time in a preliminary way.
Any other comments? Just received information. Thank you. Thank you, Director. Next item.
Mayor Communications Director of Administration Napoleon Gonzalez. The first item is multipurpose center presentation.
Thank you. Director Gonzalez.
So Dominic Leonardo is going to be doing the presentation, but I just want to take this moment to thank council and have a very happy Thanksgiving to you, your family, and also to the viewing public.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, you too.
Thank
You as well?
As well, Napoleon.
Are you cooking? No, you're buying.
Thank you.
Mr. Leonardo, welcome.
So President, thank you. Did you all receive the, this is a printout of
Yes.
the presentation from September. So I know there's a couple of items on the docket tonight, but for this portion, I just wanted to provide this to you as far as the conceptual dollar amounts and then functions of the community center. So as we had, I think it was last week, discussing having the full court gymnasium portion. And then in this printout that has an estimated kind of like master plan cost. And then also the learning center, the circulation, the support, conceptual cost, as well as soft costs and furniture and stuff. And I think that's how Council President Rodrick came to his calculations last week. But I just wanted to have this before you again this week with the other items that are on the docket.
Sure. And when we can go to those other items and then talk, and then you can answer questions at that time. So to save time, why don't we move forward? Do you want to finish the, well, we already heard from Director Moore, is that correct? Is there something else for number 2 in the mayor's communication? Or was that covered earlier?
Well, I got a question on the
Yes.
community center.
Okay, I just
Still on
thought
it?
we were going to do
Yeah.
combine it later, but that's
Oh, so I'm looking at the layout and stuff, everything's, I see the full court gym, the classroom, where's the fitness room and locker rooms? Am I just not seeing that part?
Yeah, so when we had discussed with the architect, when you remove the pool off that page 2, there will be space to incorporate those functions. So that way you don't have to have those, the configuration can change as far as having like a swim locker room wouldn't be needed there. And then a couple of those office rooms for, that would support the pool would no longer be needed. So there's a couple of pieces within that conceptual plan that includes a pool that if removed, there's space for those functions.
Right, but if we don't go with the pool,
That's what I mean. Yeah.
we'll still
that's
get, if we
Sorry.
do go with the pool,
Oh, okay.
where's the fitness room?
If you do include a pool, and you add the fitness room, I think that can be incorporated into kind of the flex and multi-purpose rooms.
Okay. Because, like I said, we're looking to build a rec center. And, you know, and the program rooms are needed as part of a rec center, absolutely. I thought we were getting a design with a fitness room, and I don't see that.
Leonardo, in this picture, so in the monies that were awarded in that grant, is it stated that there's a certain number of classrooms or square footage that needs to be used for classroom space or 360 education?
No. So that's as far as like a square footage that needs to be, it needs to be used for those uses. So I would even make the argument that a gymnasium we can, use for education workforce.
'Cause in this proposed
development.
plan, it has identified 4 classrooms.
Correct. Yep.
Would we be able to then, perhaps instead of the 4 classrooms, be able to take maybe 1.5 or 2 of those classrooms and turn it into, a health fitness room that would be used versus a classroom space?
Yeah, I think there's space in the conceptual design to have to meet all those functions. The state does make it clear that they do, for their $4 million grants, we do need to demonstrate that we can do health education and workforce programming. So, yeah, we just need to make sure we meet those requirements with the state.
Which would be just in a classroom.
Yeah, I think one classroom might be a little light. That might be a difficult sell if I show them a gymnasium, and then one classroom and then ask for
there
4
could be 2
million.
classroom, because we have 4 proposed on this plan.
Mhm.
4 classrooms.
Great.
2 of them stood classrooms that could be used interchangeably for healthcare or whatever other. We could use 2 of the other classrooms that would come out to maybe close to 1,300 square feet to be a workout room,
Mhm.
exercise room. So I think some of the concern, for me at least, is looking at the design and then the numbers and them not matching. Like, I don't know when, so this was back from September. So even though we've had multiple conversations, a revised layout of what the council has asked to see hasn't been provided.
We've talked to the architect, but to pay for additional new design plans and floor plans when this is like a concept plan of what you can do. So it's like, yeah, it's a concept of these are the functions, these are the costs, the square footage cost to support those functions. This is what that would be.
Through the chair.
Councilman Fogarty.
Does the state say that we have to put it where the site is proposed?
That's where we have our money awarded to in our application.
Yeah, I think we settled on that.
That address?
That's the address that we have in our grants submitted to the state, which we have been awarded.
If we don't accept that proposed grant, how much do you think we could do for a gymnasium, maybe 2 gymnasiums elsewhere in the city?
So
What
are
do
you,
you think would be a cost for what the children of East Providence and the residents want for a gymnasium?
I would, the cost that we have provided here is the $6.7 million for one gymnasium. So that's the only cost I can honestly give you because that's the only cost I have.
Well, I've been in several gyms in the past couple of weeks. Do you think that's an adequate number, $6 million for a gymnasium? Or do you think that's a high-end cost with some added fees and padded fees and design fees and architectural fees and this fees and
Yeah, I would say, so this,
unknown fees?
in this presentation, it does include soft costs, it includes contingencies, it includes furniture, fixtures, equipment. So those are all the square footage costs. As far as, Peregrine Group is the project manager. I think how they get these cost estimates are based on like the dollars of different projects they've worked on. So I don't think they're out of thin air. I think they are based on something. That's why. So it's the project manager and the architect is how we get these numbers.
Council President, do you know if other cities and towns have given back such grants and not used them for this?
I personally haven't heard of any. I know there's one town that has been in the news that doesn't, the mayor of that town isn't supporting the program, but everyone else is on board.
Well, the reason I'm at, no, you know, my statement is in this, Dominic, and you guys do a great job. A lot of people that call me do not want it there at that site. They want a rec center like I think of a rec center. Even two, I think we can, you know, I'm not the project manager, but gymnasiums with a field, with a weight room, simple, couple of classrooms, I guess, if it has to be. But, you know, I'm not a fan of giving up opera funds for such a deal that I'm still on a lot of unknowns. And a lot of people don't want it there. So anyway, thank you. You do a lot of good work. I appreciate it.
I will say just on the location piece, like that location again is our current recreation department is located there. So it is already where we have our operations of the students do go there after school for the after school programming. So I think getting them out of that basement, it's right there. It's where the seniors are and it's where our current rec department is. But I think we all wouldn't call that our rec center because there's no court, there is a fitness facility there, but so again, I would say they already are there is where our rec department is. So now they could be there. So
Basically, we need a couple of gyms, a gym, because we have a rec, you know,
Yeah.
we have a fitness room.
Mhm.
We have classrooms all throughout the city that are existing now that can be used and tapped into. We don't have to take the money if we don't really need it or unknown usage. You know, I'm just listening to people that call me, I want a gym. I'm in the gym every weekend. You know, so I am in favor of a rec center, despite those that want to say that I'm not. I'm in favor of a pool for our communities, but not to be rushed and not to be unknown. There's too many unknowns for me, and a lot of money going to be spent, I feel, is unnecessary. So that's my point.
the rush thing, I hear it's obviously these mandates with ARPA and with the state funding. So when they put these timelines on us to get it, you know, spent, that's kind of what we're up against. Just like, you know, we're all up against, we're all on the same team here. But that's why it's get the construction plans, get it completed, everything fully operational by 2026. So that, and then that's where that 4 million is from, and that's where ARPA funding is from. So we have millions of dollars that are tied to getting things fully operational by that 2026 date.
So what was said to these architects that you guys came back with a $45 million design? This is where we're getting confused. I mean,
I think that's based on
obviously
significant
the
number of
administration
functions.
gave them, this is what we're looking to do.
I think when you spell out the different types of uses, it's a concept. All right, what type of programming do you want? At that $45 million design of the programming, that included theater, gymnasium, and you know we've all seen our beautiful high school. It had the court, the walking path. So when you describe the different types of programming you want and you include everything, you get the everything cost, I think, and that included pool, walking path, theater. There's a lot more in that proposal. So I think that's how you get to that number.
I think there's a way you can build a couple of gyms for a few $1 million each. And overhead, they had a couple of rooms you could call as that classroom cultural, and there was fitness rooms on the first floor with the square footage needed for what the kids need for a rec center. In my mind, a rec center. So I have to add that before we go forward with trying to grab $3 million as we go forward with this meeting, that I have too many questions, too many unknowns. I'm not happy with that facility place to go there. And I would be very happy giving the money back if we can't use it. So
I'm going to disagree a little bit with you,
Lawson.
brother. I'm all in on getting this built. I think the location is the location. I think this design is pretty much where we're getting there. So, yeah, we all said that we're going to support a rec center. We're just trying to do some due diligence and just make sure that things get done right.
Yeah, one of the things to be done right. Thank you, Mr. President, and to speak on what Councilman Lawson just said, to do things right. We all want a recreation center. I definitely want the pool. I just want to have assurance tonight that there is a rec center, a health center, you know, one of these rooms gets converted into, you know, it doesn't have to be the size of Planet Fitness, but there is a fitness room. Because I don't want all of a sudden to say, oh, wow. We passed the money and then it's going to be like, oh, wow.
Right. And I think from,
The concern here, and we said this multiple times about this, and it's going on deaf ears.
from
I
the
just-
top,
I'm not gonna, yeah.
from the 45 plan down to what we have, you know, this is doable, has to be completed, you know, within a couple of years, not earmarked, but done. I know Councilman Fogarty, we've talked about, I think a lot of us were thinking Pierce Field at one point. And from what I've looked into, it's not going to work in the short term. Maybe way down the line, the corner that I wanted to look at where there's currently a building, that's not going to happen for a while, if at all. The only open space left at that corner of Mercer and Lion is a pretty all-purpose green space, which a lot of people didn't want to see another building go up there because then you need some parking. So the whole thing with the pool, the original plan would have been kind of stuffed at the senior center property. But I think this basic plan is something to go with. If we give the money back, I don't think for the 3 million that this council seems willing to potentially turn into this, by today's cost, you're not gonna, you and I can be in a gym and say, I think they could put this up for $1 million. But these are the people, the architects, the engineers, the square footage is the same, whether it's a Taj Mahal or a backyard gym. A square foot cost gives you an idea.
I understand that.
So to start, and then maybe down the line, we can put another gym somewhere else or add a pool.
Would you look at near Martin, that property there behind the Teamsters? It's a good size, right next to a middle bus line. There's several spots. I feel rushed on this. I appreciate the planning department. No neglect. It's just a debate as we should have. That's my opinion. That's a lot of the constituents' opinion. So we're gonna go forward with the meeting, but
Yeah, that's a debate.
the dialogue, and there's
Right.
lots that I don't think we've tapped into, and I don't think we should be in a rush with all the facilities we have and the infrastructure problems we have. You know, we got crises everywhere, so.
Councilman Rigo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope that the design stays where it is because maybe 2 years, 5 years, who knows, down the line, if there isn't be funding or through private sector that we do include the pool. So I would hope that the locker rooms would stay there so that we don't come back and say, oh, now we're going to build another set of locker rooms. I think where we keep it, put it there. And I think in the verbiage that when we pass this, it has to say, it has to say the exercise room. Because right now, it doesn't say anything.
And there are
I
four,
just want to tighten it up,
right.
you know.
Well, and there are these 4 rooms that can be flexible. I'm sure at least 2 have to be identified as, you know, classrooms. We've got a fitness room. There are also other classrooms
Well,
on that site.
Plus, the rec center does programming. They do like arts and crafts and other stuff. So we need space for them to do that as well, too.
Right.
And then-
So it's appropriate to have these classroom spaces.
Right.
Absolutely.
And there's also, you could put this, if you've been to other places, you can turn half the court into portable rooms for the time being and everything like that. So there's opportunities right there to
divide.
incorporate those.
Well, we're gonna finish up the discussion on this a little bit later. Let's finish off the report, which number 3 lists Glen Line fence quotes, Department of Public Works.
I may,
Yes, just Gonzalez.
briefly.
Sure.
We just need direction, that's all, and an amount in which you guys want to be able to spend.
Yep, we should get to that later. Yep. Director Borges, are you ready to come forward? Thank you.
Good evening. So the council had requested that we look at quotes for replacing fence over at Glen Lyon, on one adjacent property there. So the city did reach out to 4 different fence companies, and we got pricing for both wooden fence as well as chain link. And the prices varied from the lowest being $9,200 to the highest being $20,000. So I have the bid, or I have the quotes here, if you'd like me to pass these out to you.
You did email them to us. We did get them.
Okay.
Someone,
So you have those electronically. I mean, if you want hard copies, I have.
sure.
They're not organized, they're all separate, but.
So the discussion on this has been, the unknown was, is this a city fence? Is it not a city fence? There seems to be prior correspondence where the city may have been involved a long time ago. There's nothing really current to say that, but other than that, and I know one of the gentlemen, a couple gentlemen are here, and it's not a public hearing, but maybe without objection, we can, have them speak to us. But what I want to say is, and I went by there again today, but everything's up. Everything looks good. I didn't see a problem or the hole that we were talking about before. Or yes, Councilman Rigo.
Thank you. The neighbors have, to their credit, did the upkeep on that. And that's the reason what you see today. At this time, I would like to have the clerk read a letter from the first day of December in 2021 into the record, please.
So ordered.
It's an email sent Wednesday, December 1st, 2021, on the subject of picket fence repair at Gunline Field. Dan, after speaking with Mr. Bryden and reviewing the letter he provided, it appears that the city originally installed this fence along the neighboring property lines. This is a unique situation, and because the city installed this fence, I believe it is now the city's responsibility to upkeep it. It is my belief and position that the upkeep of this fence does not set a precedent that would require the city to install new fences along other residents' property lines and city parks. Please add the replacement of the sections of the damaged fence to the list of Park Department fall projects. Thank you, Mayor Bob DeSilva.
So I think obviously
Well, there's an email there that
From the mayor.
acknowledges fixing a portion.
yeah,
But we're getting prices of up to $20,000 to fix a portion of the fence, and then,
that would be the whole fence, but
but that's not what we're looking to do.
Right.
In that memo.
no, in that
the
memo,
portion.
it's our responsibility to maintain the upkeep of that. That's
So-
my interpretation is.
There's
So
no objection. I'd like to ask, if he's willing to, Mr. Balsafiore, if you would come forward and, if you want to comment on it. I know that Mr. Bryden is with you also. If you both want to address us, my question to you is, in going by there today, everything looked pretty good. I know you or neighbors may have done it, but this is quite an expense for the city to bear for something that is in fact, a portion of it, as we look further down, look relatively new, so what's the latest, Dave?
The reason it's 4 sections in particular, if you're looking out my backyard towards the playground, to the left, there are 4 sections in particular that the only reason they're standing is because my brother-in-law and I put in several 7-foot stakes and drove them into the ground on both sides of the poles and replaced the broken pickets with some old pickets that were lying around. Also for the crossbars, that was another issue where we had to take some of those 7-foot stakes and cut them to fit to create a new crossbars. So that's literally the only reason that at least 4 of those sections are still standing. And I'm not, I mean, the quote of 20,000, I assume is for an entire fence that goes from one neighbor's yard through Mr. Bryden's yard. I mean, there are still several good sections of fence there. And, if the city's not willing to replace the entire fence because of the cost, which is understandable, then just, if possible, replace the sections that are being held up by the wooden stakes and those other sections that are rapidly deteriorating. And it's very easy, if you look at it from my side of the fence and Jim's side, you can tell which sections are the newest because of the crossbars are a different quality than the older sections of fence. And if it were going to be replaced, I would be consistent with the newer version of sections that were used. So
What is a section? 8 feet wide?
I think it's 8 feet, yeah.
You're talking about 2 sections.
I'm talking probably at the very least 4 that comes to mind, which if we were to take the wooden stakes out, some of the poles have snapped off at ground level. So the wooden stakes are the only thing holding them up. So
From the other side, obviously, I know you, I could have knocked on your door, but I didn't want to bother you. I didn't want to go in your yard. But from the other side, I was very close to it. Everything looked pretty good all the way down, the entire length, including a newer fencing down the other end is looking at your house to the right or to the left from your yard. I didn't see, like 4 sections that were now granted, like maybe from the inside it looks worse, but I'm just wondering if we can't get a couple of sections and replace them, poles, why do we need, Dan, what was the 20 or 10,000 to 20? What was the distance? What were they for?
They were all for the same amount of fence. They're all apples for apples. It's just based on the companies that, we solicited bids from.
What were the dimensions?
We got a price for 250 linear feet, which is the entirety of that, of Mr. Bryan's property. Or, excuse me, Mr. Belsafiore's property.
You were talking about the highest bid, obviously, the number that's been thrown.
Right, I said the
highest.
bids range from 9,000 to 20,000.
So
So the
Arcade, that was for. But we're not really asking to do the whole entire length.
Right, but at what point,
Yeah.
this ties up city staff. This is not something we do for other parks in the city, and it's honestly sets bad precedent. We got you the prices. That's what the council wanted. I'll do. If we choose to spend $10,000 on replacing a fence, I think we should do the whole thing. If that's, where we're going with this. But to replace one section to have to deal with, what we're doing right now, continued over and over again. It's just a lot of man hours and time that we spend replacing sections of fence that, quite honestly, are not the city's responsibility. We have money earmarked for improvements at Glen Lyon that'll go towards, resurfacing the walking paths, to put in solar powered lighting, to resurface the basketball courts, put in new fencing, which is all, earmarked for those projects that would improve the facilities, that would improve the playground equipment. So if we want to utilize funding from the capital, we'd have to, take away from something we want to do in the park. But that's
To the chair.
the council.
Councilman,
Excuse me, Mr. Borges? Dan, do we have any plans for redoing anything to do with PS fields, those baseball fields, the fences, softball? Any monies put for them? Not to
have-
change the subject, I just
Yeah,
want
we
to
have
know if
monies
it's going to be
allocated.
redone.
We have monies allocated in capital. Actually, as of this week, we met with several fencing contractors to look at replacing the
Fencing
the
over
fence
there?
material.
Fields too, redoing the whole fields over? Dugouts, lining?
We don't have that much money, but we're hoping to,
No, I mean,
repair the
because we
broken-
have that opera funding that I can definitely think that would be a great cause for.
We're getting pricing.
Okay.
Question for the director, with the bids that came out, I would presume the different fencing companies, that would include them and would include them installing it and not using our staff, correct?
Correct. It'd be them installing it.
Okay. So it would not be a burden on the manpower of DPW.
No. Nope. That's why I suggested we get pricing. Yep.
I mean, I'm gonna move forward at some point. That it's the next meeting based on what I had the clerk read into the record. That it's acknowledged by the administration that it is our responsibility on that. If it's not really setting precedent. It was, the precedent was set beforehand, and we're just gonna carry it through. And I don't know, and if we do it, if we can have agreement with the present landowners that this could be the last time, hopefully we do it right and we move on from there. I mean, if that would be a possibility.
Just in response to that, when we originally made the agreement didn't say we'll maintain the fence until 2023. It just said we'll maintain the fence. And for you, sir, you should knock on my door or just walk in my yard and
I would pick them up.
and just look at the fence from the other side and you can see at least the crossbars are decaying and which eventually leads to the pickets falling out. And we talked about the safety issues of the children and not only that, but a chain link fence is another safety issue. Kids climb fences like that. I did. You did. Bad guys climb fences. It's the privacy would be gone if it was a chain link fence. That's why I say we should maintain the wooden fence.
So it's not down for a vote tonight. It's down to get prices and things, so we can bring it forward and decide either way. I don't know, Mayor Bryden, can you add to this puzzle?
Preference, Jim Bryden, 17 Hollow Ridge, Rumford. We would really prefer to have sections of the wood stockade fence replaced than have a chain link fence. I've never, since I've lived there, it's from January of 2000, I've never seen anyone have the ability to climb over the fence, even with soccer balls coming in the yard and stuff. So it makes you feel, I'm convinced of the fact that it's difficult to get over that fence, the wood stockade. By contrast, the chain link fence is very easy to climb over. I've seen that, we've all observed that over the years. I think that's particularly important in light of, when we think about the street that we live on and some of the activity that sometimes we see in the field in Glen Lyon late at night, people setting off fireworks and different, the police come on occasion. It's not really it's a good area. It's not, but it does, I think it does make it safer, and I think it would be a mistake to have it kind of give people the ability to easily get over a chain link fence and then get onto Hollow Ridge, especially in light of what we're talking about earlier this evening and what happened earlier this week, where there are legitimate safety issues and attempted burglaries that have taken place on our street just within the past week or so. But I'm convinced of that. I've never seen anyone have the ability to climb over the fence, and that's nice. And when I'm in my backyard, is also, you see the playground, there's a small playground that's right behind, next to the school. And I really can't see them and they can't see me. And there's a certain amount of privacy, which makes it nice all around. So we'd rather have the existing fence, replaced. It is the city's fence. It was there when I moved there. They replaced it in its entirety in 2006. The letter that's been talked about, I have the original. I emailed it to the city, and basically the letter simply was the letter was written because the fence had been completed, all except for the corner where the gate is, and they left it open. So I contacted the city, and they said, well, we're concerned about putting that little gate in the corner. And they said, we don't want to establish a property line by virtue of where that gate would be located. And we're concerned about, people somehow being able to get into your yard. And so I addressed that concern by saying, this letter basically says it does not establish a property line. And, basically hold you harmless in terms of any issue involving the gate. It only related to the gate in the corner. So it was the city's fence, and they replaced it. They have repaired it too. So it's owned by the city. It's city property.
And I think no matter what we do, I agree that chain link's not appropriate for the area for a number of reasons. People can climb it, doesn't look good. It's either the picket or nothing. So I think we got some more information tonight about ownership. So Councilman, I would give you the lead at the next meeting if you want to pursue this, and then we'll go from there. And it looks like we won't have to tie up our workers with this. It's just a matter of, and then we might want to talk about future precedent. Does it mean, we're indebted to fix this fence forever? And what about when the neighbors from Riverside Rec call us now? Because all those houses, if you can picture the rec, abut that big field, and it's a picket fence, the length of that. But you want to add something, Solicitor?
Yeah, thank you. So I think we talked last time, if you're going to move forward the direction, I think we need to have some kind of agreement that this may be one and done kind of thing, that the other gentleman indicated there was some kind of a written agreement that the city would maintain the fence. That's not in the letter that Mr. Broding just showed me. So if you do have that agreement, I'd like to see it, because would maybe change things. But I think, going forward, at the end of the day, it may be a city fence, but it is on private property. So it's I think you need to clarify this, because you could open up a Pandora's box of anyone else who might want a fence on their backyard. So again, I just want, if there is an agreement that's signed by someone from the city indicating that the city agrees to maintain the fence, I'd just like to see it so I can have it for our records and we can move it along. But that's not an agreement between, the mayor can't bind the city like that. This was put in before the mayor was, so I don't know where he got his information from. He could be mistaken for all I know. I don't know. But I did hear that there was an agreement somewhere that the city may maintain the fence. If we can get that agreement, I haven't been able to find it. I have asked my staff. This goes back to 2006. No one seems to have it. But if you do have such a letter, I get it. It would be helpful.
It would have come to you, right, as a legal counsel?
In 2006, it would have came to the legal department.
I'm
Yeah.
talking about the 2021 letter that was just read into the record. You said you don't know where he got his
I
information.
don't think I'm copied on that email.
Okay, no, I'm just throwing it out that he might go to your office and say, hey, Mike.
He might have, but I have no recollection of that. Yeah.
That's, I believe, is really on city property, not on our property. Yeah, it's really for the purpose of enclosing or separating the city property, but it's on city property. And I don't think a city would have installed a fence on private property.
So that changes things too. If it truly is, my impression that this was all on private property, but I don't know.
We'd have to get obviously, we would have to get.
The plans, yeah.
That's his problem.
All right, so let's move this forward. We'll next meeting we'll make it. Thank you very much. Yes.
Last thing, just 3 incidents that happened recently. My neighbors had someone come in the back of their yard because they have a smaller fence that he just stepped over. Another neighbor, prior city worker, his wife went to the back door, and she heard a noise, and there was a man trying to get in. These are both on Hollow Ridge. And then there was another one on Horsford Avenue where neighbor went out to either get his trash cans or put them out, and there was a gentleman, 6 foot tall or so, standing there. He asked, "Who are you? What do you want?" And he took off. So just want to maintain that fence so someone's not able to just get into the backyards. And I mean, I just talked to one neighbor into closing their blinds at night or their shades, so someone can't just go to the back door and see what's what. So it's a problem.
Sorry. You're missing the other incident that a month ago where basically that whole neighborhood from Duncan north and south where the police were in pursuit of a person. You probably didn't really realize what was going on.
Oh, no, I realized because a cruiser came down the street and announced for the neighbors to stay in their house because they were going to let the dog out.
You had a shelter.
It was, turns out it was for someone who had warrants and he fled the scene.
Right. Need to move along. Thank you, Balsafiore, for coming, and Mr. Bryden. And thank you very much. Sure, we'll get it resolved soon. Next item, please.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of East Providence repealing ordinance chapter 900 and reallocating and reappropriating up to $5 million toward a community recreation center. Sponsor, Council President Roderick.
This is a continuation on the docket from the last meeting, so we'll just
I thought we tabled it.
table this. Yeah, it was
Definitely.
tabled, so it probably didn't need to appear again, so we can move on to the next one.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of East Providence repealing ordinance chapter 900 and reallocating and reappropriating up to $3 million toward a community recreation center. Sponsor, Councilman Lawson, Councilman Fogarty, Councilwoman Sousa, Council Vice President Rego, and Council President Roderick.
A lot of sponsors.
So
Councilman Lawson.
I asked for all the sponsorship because we're listening to the administration. They need some guidance from us. They need to know what we're willing to support. So I'm looking at this concept and it looks good. You got the full court gym, you got the learning space. We do want the fitness area. And we got the pool, which is what we asked last time. So they came back. To be very clear, moving this money, all it does is just let the administration know that they can go to the architect and say, you have $10 million. It doesn't mean we're writing the check tomorrow. It doesn't mean anything, but we got to let them know at some point how much will, and I understand there's so many questions. I get that. But this money, if you want to call it kind of like a placeholder for the rec center, why we're getting these questions answered, that I think is appropriate. I think we need to start showing that we, beyond words, we need some actions to show that we support this recreation center. We all agree that we wish that this conversation started earlier when we started bringing it up when we first started this term, but that didn't happen. So we're here now. And so the discussion is, are we willing to, out of the $5 million we had towards things, earmark 3 of that towards the rec center and leave $2 million for infrastructure to include, because I added streets, because the original ordinance only called for water and sewer lines. They did not call for streets. So we added that stipulation. I do think it'd be good that if we have individual concerns about infrastructure, we start bringing them to the administration to start addressing, because infrastructure, it's a broad word. And we can't just keep saying infrastructure. We got to like I gotta be honest, down in Riverside, we don't see the flood and we don't, so when we talk infrastructure, yeah, roads need to be paved. They always do. But we need to kind of get a little bit more, what exactly do we need? Because we do got the money to get things fixed. But we got to kind of let them know what we're seeing and hearing that residents think need to be fixed. And, it would have been nice that when we first got $28 million that it was brought up then. But again, we are here where we are now. So that's my spiel of why I think it's good that we move 3 million earmarked towards the rec center to go along with the 7 million in grant funding. And that will give us a total of $10 million that we're letting the administration know we're comfortable signing off on.
No proof.
Well, no, but I believe the design is in the future. So they'll design the aquatic center, which everybody seems to say that they want. So the design will be there, and then we got to find the $8 million, which whether it's grant money, federal money, wherever. But that's my spiel that
To clarify, this does not include the pool.
Right.
This time. The planning, we have the plans for it and eventually, but the 10 million would be,
the 10 million is to let them know this is how much you got to spend to build the rec center. And if we had the full looking at the number, it said 17 or this said 20. If we had it, we'd go.
Sure.
You know, I mean, I got my opposition against the pool, but I dropped it. You know, politics is compromised. I don't like the spot, but it's the location it is. But we're at the point where we got to start doing some concrete steps forward. But that don't mean we can't keep questioning and asking for specifics and stuff. But we can't keep dragging our feet. And, you know, at some point we got to take action to show that we're committed. So that's my spiel. for that.
Councilman Fogarty.
I understand that. And, you know, the original intent for that infrastructure, water, sewer, how you word it, and I know it wasn't included street pavements and such. Just the other day with that light ring going around certain neighborhoods, there is a lot of issues. I mean, we paid before my council seat, we paid, so, you know, a few $100,000 for a company to come in and tell us what we did need. You know, Director Borges is short-staffed. He's thin. But I'm not a project manager. I drive around the city on a slow rain day and I can see all the structures and problems we have. You know, despite, I can list a whole bunch. I said that word generally. If you wanted me to come up with a plan 1 through 5, I would have come up with a plan 1 through 5 and spent the $5 million in a half an hour. And I didn't feel as that was my job. You give a company to survey the city and it's $200,000, $300,000 that I'm researching the meeting that we actually, you guys were part of it, that you allowed this, and the list was there. So, you know, I don't want to freely give up that money when we still have a year and change to address it to the needs. I mean, in Councilman Rego's ward alone, there's a constituent that we saw the other day at the end of Hobson, at the end of Miles, it floods. So I have to, you know, be the one to address that. If I have to, you know, I have to, but I don't have a list, Council President. But there is a list of, definitely a list of needs that money could be used for, and not a recreation center. That a lot of people don't want it there. I agree about the rec center. But to take that money, I don't feel it's the appropriate act, but, you know, I'm at the mercy of the council's decision.
Well, I think it's time to, well, go ahead. I'll withhold comment. Councilman Rego.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I said many times, I am a big proponent of sports, having held numerous positions and having grown up here and played here. There is a need for a recreation center. And that's the reason why 25 years ago that people voted once and then they voted twice for a recreation center. I'm discouraged when I found out that the bond was returned, where we couldn't have taken action on the bond to help subsidize this. I have reservations, but I do support this, but I have many reservations. As Councilman Lawson talks about, that he doesn't have the flooding in Riverside. He's fortunate, or the people in Riverside were unfortunate in 2010 during the Great Flood, that basically that whole Waddington area and a huge portion of Riverside was basically underwater. And thank God that Senator Reed at the time and Senator Whitehouse were able to get money, and that area was fixed. So I have issues, as Councilman Fogarty talks about, Hobson and Miles, and I can name them, Chafee and Adele, and go on, even though Ferris has been fixed. and you see it. We need a plan. If we're gonna commit to this and this project, I'd like to see the outside maybe toned down a little bit. It's a recreation center. We don't need it to look like a corporate headquarters. We can save some money there. It's a gymnasium. Across the street, look at the field house. If you go to McLaughlin Athletic Center at LaSalle, it's a field house other than the new additional fitness center. So we can tone down some money and save money and be practical to what it is. I'm not looking to, be up here and get an award from Engineering Digest or any magazine like that for the design of the building. We need both. And we need a plan. And we need a plan immediately. And when I say immediately, in the next couple of months, as to what we're going to do with the drainage issue in the city, because it's not going away. Climate change is real.
Thank you. Councilwoman, you want to add anything?
I just wanted to ask the solicitor a question. So, provided this passes first passage today, it'll come back for second passage. We also have a resolution authorizing to enter into a contract to move the project forward. Is it coming before the council again after second passage of the allocation of funds or any other approvals once it has been approved?
I think what the administration, and I'll speak a little bit for the administration, I think what the administration needs to know is how much you're willing to spend. Now that sounds like we have that a number. You're going to approve a architectural contract tonight. I'm assuming that we're going to say we have $10 million to spend. What can you get us for the $10 million? And they'll come back with a proposal as to what that $10 million can get you, how far it gets you. So yes, and then to the extent there's contracts awarded for building this and hiring other people, that'll all be part of the process that the council would have to approve. But you have to figure out how much you're willing to spend, what the design is going to be, where is it going to be. It looks like you've kind of decided, at least preliminarily, well, we need to decide formally that it's going to go at that site because that could affect on the cost, and then you can move forward. But there'll be other interactions, but we got to move forward at some point. So how much you can spend.
So to answer my question, once the monies have been allocated and the contract has been approved to have the engineer and architect or project manager working on the design plans, will this council be able to approve the design plans, or will it just be in the hands of administration to approve the design plans and move forward with all of the architecture plans, construction plans, minus us awarding contracts that we have to pay out of the $10 million?
I think your request is a reasonable one, and I am sure that the administration would come back with the design plans to share with you what they come up with.
Share, but it doesn't mean that it's so.
Well, I mean, you appropriate the money, so if you decide not to, I mean, again, if you can take this money back at any time, so you have that's the guarantee.
That's why I'm comfortable, because we're not writing a check tonight.
Right. No, I understand that, but I just want people to be clear that once, just like zoning changes, once you make that allocation or make those decisions, what they do is out of our control. We have suggestions, we have opinions, but ultimately we're not the decision makers on that end.
The only difference here is, that's generally correct. The only difference here is in terms of financial, nothing can get spent without the council up to, a certain.
So if you don't like the design, you could say no.
Right. I mean, eventually the architect's going to come back with you with a plan, the design, and you can say, I don't like the roof. I don't know what you might like or not. So.
And that's been the process with schools, with other things. The architect will come back with the plan. I think it's time to move forward. This is not giving us everything everyone wants. Councilman Lawson said there are compromises. I am sure the mayor and team are not thrilled with this, but it's better than zero. So I think it's.
Well, the numbers say 8.2 gets everything but the pool at this point.
No, it says half court. I'm saying this isn't the actual,
Yeah.
wouldn't be the actual design.
Yeah, I think what has to happen now is that, I guess the concept is that we have, you're willing to appropriate up to $10 million. The architect will now be hired to say, what can you get us for $10 million? Knowing that the council wanted a full court, I think, full court, classroom space and a gym, not a weight room, whatever you want to call it, recreation room or whatever. And then those are the,
I think we made it clear, full court, there's no
right.
discussion on that.
I mean, I don't know if the architect might come back and say we can't do it for 10. I don't know, but I'm just saying we have to start somewhere, so.
That's where we're at.
So what you just said now, $10 million,
Up to.
up to $10 million, correct. Then we have an ordinance to appropriate $1.6 million to the architect's firm. So now we're talking about $11.6 million for this project, or is the 1.6 coming out of here?
Coming out of the 10.
Yeah, how come the resolution doesn't say
Yeah,
where
it
it's
doesn't
coming from?
say- That resolution, can you read the resolution, Madam Clerk, please?
We didn't have the money to know where it was coming from to begin with, so now that.
We
you've
have $7 million in grant money.
Which includes, was inclusive of 10 million, right? So 7 million plus 10?
No,
No,
three.
7 million plus, it's the total amount of money you're appropriating or willing to spend is 10 million.
Correct.
So the 1.6 will come out of that 10 million.
We'll have
Right,
to
but why
stick
didn't
with
it say that? In
We didn't know what the 10 million was. We didn't know what we would have.
right, but it could have read, well, taking it out of the grant money.
Well, we
We
put
can
that
amend
in
it
it
on the
tonight.
floor.
We can amend that.
Oh, we can? Okay, yeah.
Because that resolution is.
We'll make it
ambiguous,
clear when we get to that
beyond
one.
ambiguous. You know,
So in terms of this, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we reallocate 3 out of the 5 that we appropriated for infrastructure towards the community for a total project of $10 million. 7 from the grant money, 3 from opera.
Motion by Councilman Lawson. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion to move it along for second passage.
Second by Council Vice President Rego. Madam Clerk, please call a roll.
Councilman Fogarty,
Nay.
Councilman Lawson.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rego. Councilwoman Sousa. Council President Rodrick.
Aye. Passes 4-1. Thank you for the discussion. Motion, okay. Thank you. Next item.
Just a point of order. And do we need to have another resolution showing that the $2 million is for infrastructure? Because now we're unhooking.
It reads,
Well,
it reads
Good.
3.
So we need a second passage along that, I mean.
We'll
along
include
that
it,
way.
yeah.
We'll include that, correct? The second passage.
Yeah.
No,
we-
but for the second passage, we have to follow, yeah, just making sure.
Yep, it'll be included. Thank you.
Resolution approving the submission of an application to the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Program in the amount of $26,100,000 and repealing resolution number 239 adopted November 1st, 2022, sponsored Council President Rodrick.
Thank you. So this is a technical amendment. I think we know the Clean Water State Revolving Fund is where we get monies to do the water infrastructure repairs, and every year there's an application period. And there has been an adjustment. I'll ask the solicitor to be more technical than I am right now, but we actually are faring a little better than initially thought. We may have to show that we have upwards of $26,100,000, but we'll be paying back $23 million. Is that essentially
So,
technical?
so the original ordinance resolution that was passed authorized borrowing up to $23.1 million. That had been approved. Our bond counsel has indicated the total amount, which we were, not only, that was the amount that we had to repay because the infrastructure bank was relieving $3 million of of debt, basically. So there's $3 million which we don't have to pay back. So the bond council has asked us to reflect the total amount we're getting is 26.1, which is reflected in this ordinance, but we only have to pay back 23.1. So there was and that's why this is to make the paperwork all align, that the total amount that the city is actually getting is 26.1. The 3 million is being forgiven, that we don't have to pay back. And the original ordinance that you passed, resolution said 23.1. Bond council wants it to represent the total amount that we're actually borrowing and getting.
And I think whenever
It
you're
doesn't
dealing
change
with,
the prepayment schedule. I'm sorry, it doesn't change anything or indebtedness. It's just the cleanup, technical cleanup.
you go back to various things like banking crises in the state, bond councils are very, very technical and very careful. So it's almost like something we have to do.
Council President, I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Councilwoman Souza.
Second.
Approved, seconded by Councilman Lawson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Next item.
Resolution authorizing the East Province Arts Council to carry out the citywide utility box art project sponsored Councilwoman Souza.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Fellow council members. So this is just direction. I know we had allocated monies to various projects with the Opera Fund, one of them being the utility box art project. This is simply giving the city's art council the authority to move ahead with a plan to get that project going since we have the funds allocated, and then to present it perhaps to the council, or if anybody wants on the council to be involved. I've been in communication with the Arts Council on the project, and we're hoping to get it up and moving by the spring. So through the winter, kind of work on what the plan would be across the city. As I mentioned to the council before, if you have utility boxes in your wards that you are interested in seeing if they are able to be used as an art project, depending on whether they're owned by the city or utilities, we'd have to find that out first, but certainly forward those either to myself or to Jill or the Arts Council members themselves or the president, so that way we have a number for when they go out to bid. They'll know how many they're going to be doing, and then can come up with either a strategic theme or maybe various themes throughout the wards. So I move for passage on this.
Yeah, and I'm going to second that. But I will say, I think it is appropriate that a couple of us work with the Arts Council. And let's have fun with it. Let's let townies decide what kind of designs they look in. And, it's just going to be a great project that's just going to enhance the aesthetics of the city. And it's done in other communities to great effect. Great effect. So
As long as in Rumford, they do not put the likeness of Councilman Rigo on all of these boxes.
You wanted,
it'd be a mass exodus out of.
Yeah.
I thought you
Rumford will secede to the east side.
oh, back to Rehoboth.
Riverside tried.
But I thought you would want me on it based on
Yeah.
my
Is there a motion?
t-shirt payment.
Made the
And I
motion,
seconded it.
Souza, seconded by Councilman Law. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Next.
Resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for architectural and engineering services for the proposed East Providence Community Center, sponsored Council President Rodrick.
So this is, I guess you'd call it part two of the plan to get the community rec center done. This would have to read that it falls within the
The grant money.
$10 million that has been pretty much earmarked for this project. And
Do
then
we
it
have
would
the
come back.
grant money in hand?
Planner Leonardo is coming forward.
So we've been approved, but we don't have that cash in the city's bank account.
So if
A lot of these, I'm sorry.
If we didn't have opera, how were we going to pay for this?
No, like we have the grants. A lot of them are reimbursement based. Same with our Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. So you get the grant award, you do the project, and you put in for reimbursement, and they pay us back. So it's not.
And we didn't give them a go-ahead that we were doing it, so they hold the money, I'm sure.
So like
But what I'm saying
it's
is,
typical of every grant. You don't
so this 1.6 is coming out of opera funded. Because they don't have cash on hand from the grants.
It come from anyway, as long as it's in that 10 million.
Right. Come from anywhere, but right now to write a check that doesn't bounce, we don't have 7 million in the bank. We just got the opera funds.
We have grant funded awarded. I don't know technically how finance department.
We don't have the money in the bank.
That's my point.
The only money we have.
Reimbursement.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
The only money we have in the bank right now would be to use the opera money, which then would take us out of play because the only money we control is the opera money. That's the only thing we have.
That's how all grants work.
No, I understand that, but the money right now to pay the architect, we don't have the grant money isn't sitting in an account in the city of East Providence somewhere. That's what Councilman Lawson's saying, and that's what I'm saying. So the money that gets used to pay for this grant would come out of the $3 million opera money, which would then reduce what we have to say in the matter.
Can I just, through the chair? ask a
Councilwoman
question?
Souza.
So correct me if I'm wrong. So if this is approved tonight, the request for the architect's contract, and then the funds are approved of 3 million from opera, you would then, I would assume incrementally, be paying the architect through the opera funds, asking for reimbursement from the grant to sublet those funds that we use. Is that the way it would work? Because we wouldn't be able to continue. So essentially, let the state know we've spent X amount of monies. We need to release some of that grant money that you're awarding us. Or if I'm mistaken, you did mention that once we've completed certain pieces of the project, that's when the funds will be released. I think it got mentioned once that once certain aspects of the grant were fulfilled, then they could reimburse us because we've met that requirement.
Stages, only in stages. But I think, and I wish Director of Finance, Malcolm Moore, were here to be able to answer the question of exactly where the money come from. I don't necessarily believe that it would especially just tap the ARPA money. But I think there's other areas which you could do as long as the money's being reimbursed. But Director Moore, Keen, I can have him be direct an email to you in the morning. Regards to answering that question.
So essentially, it's almost sounds like it would be coming from general funds.
Yeah.
Right.
We got 1.6 just sitting around.
Well, we wouldn't you don't pay 1.6 up front. I think what Councilwoman Souza outlined is relatively accurate. I mean, in my experience with all of these types of projects, including the school bonds, they still have money for the high school that they haven't paid out yet. You know, you don't pay everything at once. So this architect stock will, do some work. They'll get nothing at first. They'll do some work and there may be
They got paid for the conceptual.
they'll get, yeah, that's been done.
Yeah. So it's not like they're working for free.
Right, but going forward, they'll do some work. They'll send in a voucher. They'll get something, and they're not going to get the 1 point, whatever it is, right off the bat. That's how all grants work.
Yeah, I just want to add, this isn't an untypical, this is the same as all the grants we follow. So I didn't want anybody to think that this is a different process of how we're receiving this grant funding. It's typical of how.
Right, but my concern, we're going to allocate 3 million. If we stop building, how are we paying the contractors if we don't have the grant money in hand? So what are we waiting for the money? They just want the design, the final design? Yeah. See, these are questions that. I'm fine with the architecture, but it's how are we paying? That's the only thing I'm asking.
I understand. Those are legitimate questions, but.
So do we need to pass this tonight if the 3 million hasn't been allocated yet because we need second passage?
No, because we need to get the architect working. Again, we're not going to write a check for $1.6 million to the architect tomorrow. Now we have authorization, the contract will be signed. They'll start working. I'm assuming they bill on a quarterly or monthly basis, depending how much work they do.
Okay.
They draw it down.
And the state and the feds aren't going to release the money without a plan, without the architect. They want to see that we're doing something.
Okay.
I have
Well,
a- I have
it'll all
another-
come out, in the wash.
Through the chair, I have another follow-up.
Yes, Councilwoman.
So this contract that's before us is from May. Is that the contract that we're approving?
These are the amounts that they're charging.
So,
right.
a couple of things. I know that we've already paid the architects about $24,000. Is that part of this contract, or that was a separate contract?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Can we get that answer? Because I know multiple monies have have gone to this.
Staff should know that. 25.
And then the second question I have, again, based on this contract that was written in May, which in my mind, I think we need a new contract. We're in November, so we shouldn't be going off a contract in May. Because the contract it isn't, so it's saying that the project is in the amount of $17.4 million, and that's not what this project is. So to me, that being an incorrect number, and I don't feel comfortable approving a contract that has that number when that's not the monies that are being allocated, that would then change the 1.6 figure because of the amount that the contract should actually be written. Unless there's money being allocated that the council's unaware of.
I think it's the hourly rate. It's the hourly rate on the page 5, much they charge an hour is what we're going to be working on. If you certainly want to change the 17.4 million to 10 million, we can do that. It's the rate that they're charging.
Plus the pool won't be in this.
Correct.
$24,000 is not part of this. Might think that's not.
Well, that wasn't part of this contract. That was a side contract.
So we can add not to exceed $10 million. That's what we've allocated.
And again, just asking where the money is.
How about
The resolution,
That's how grants.
the resolution is flimsy at best.
The schematic design, I mean, they've
Why do you say
already
that?
come up with a schematic design that we've paid for, so I'm not really sure why the schematic design is 35%.
Say it again?
The schematic design, right? The conceptual, they've already started that, so I'm not understanding why it's at 35%. Or a reduced version of what is already on file. These numbers just aren't matching for me. The 1.6 doesn't make sense for a $10 million project.
Was the 1.6 based on the higher dollar amount, like the 45 million, then down to 20 million?
Again, it's the hourly rate, right? So this obviously is not going to take, since they got a less amount of a building to design, they're going to take less amount of hours to do it. So it's no longer a pool, so they're not have to worry about that. So you need to look at from my perspective, and again, we can do whatever you want. From my perspective, the most important part of this contract is the hourly rate that they're charging to do the work. They're set out here. So I'm saying, because they're not doing a pool, then they don't have to spend the hours to do a pool. So that will obviously not cost that much money. But you want a more definitive contract or not to exceed $10 million, we can certainly try to get to that. What we'd like to know is that we approve moving forward. We'll I guess we'll get a contract for the next council meeting if you
I
want.
mean, we can amend this. I think it would have helped if this were a little more updated. And that's what the issue is. But
I don't know
I'm
if
not.
the price will change. I'm trying to say, I don't know
Right.
if 1.6 is going to change in May. I don't know.
Right.
Does that
I-
exceed 1.6?
It should come less.
So shouldn't we ask if we're not getting the pool at this point, if it's still 1.6 before we award 1.6?
These are all great legitimate questions and you guys are doing due diligence. If you give us these questions and we'll be ready for you.
Is this requiring 2 passages? No, so we can hold off. Let's get an updated contract without the pool and with the proviso that the amount of money the city of East Providence is allocating is $10 million. Plus the city finds other monies on its own, and come back with that
Sorry.
proposal for the next
We
meeting.
did ask the gentleman to get here tonight to answer some of the questions for you, but he unfortunately is traveling for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and it's.
And can I add,
Yeah.
when we come back next time, we're gonna move. Okay, we can't,
Right.
we're asking the right questions. I get that, but 1.6 and maybe less. So next time we gotta be prepared to vote. to do this.
Right, so, Director Gonzalez, can you see with the solicitor that we just get an updated from Stark proposal with,
Listen, we encourage all these questions,
Sure,
but it's a little difficult for us to manage when we're at the meeting. If you ask the question beforehand, we can start to probe it.
And this also includes the operation manager, the OPM. This isn't just the drawings. This, am I reading this correctly? The OPM is part of this 1.6. So Peregrine and Stock are included in this, with Peregrine overseeing the, what do you call them, general contractor, project manager?
This is,
Or
right.
agent, I guess.
Yeah.
And this has been a complicated project. We've gone back and forth. Mayor's going back and forth, so here we are, with this. So I think we've cleaned it up a lot. Let's hold off on this.
Did you get enough from us tonight to feel better about it?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will ask that we hold off on this till the very next meeting and get back to us. Is that okay?
Yep.
Thank you. Next item.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh,
I want to say something before we adjourn. And this Thanksgiving week, appropriate or not, I'm gonna say it, that we see the news around the world, and I watched a newscast earlier today where a 3-year-old child is being held hostage, across and with the strife in the Middle East. I look at my 3-year-old grandson and I say, I'm thankful this Thanksgiving, he will be sitting at our table with siblings and others, and we have a lot to be thankful for, and what's going on around us in the world is unconscionable. So with that, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. We had a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. Thank you.